The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Usually there are one or two bid stealers ahead of Selection Sunday. This year there were 5, so there are more broken hearts than usual today. Oklahoma, Seton Hall, Indiana State, and St. John's, plus Pitt among the schools left out of the bracket.
But who do we blame? Do we blame the committee? Do we Paul Patino and blame the analytics?
The analytics are bullshit.
I think we all should probably never mention that word again because I think it's fraudulent.
This is probably the most difficult selection process that they've been a part of.
Taron Johnson, 3-year contract extension.
The Chicago Bears, they made a move, trading quarterback Justin Fields to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mike Danger.
The Bears.
Gene Battaglia.
You're going to the father-daughter dance. Will Danger be on the dance floor? Only if it's a certain song, Gene. Okay, like if the Feather song comes on.
The Feather song.
Like, you know, you're Mr. PXY.
I know
like,
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're going to play the Feather song.
Sabres have 14 games to go in the regular season. Why did they struggle so badly against the Seattle Kraken?
Let's go, Amerks.
Go Tigers. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome on in. Pull up a stool and join us here in the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia, Rochester's only local sports talk show. Glad you're with us at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app, your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, and our video stream on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, also streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. Fresh from an unbelievable weekend. I am Mike Danger. That is Gene Battaglia.
Oh, gosh, it was fantastic. I mean, just to see the Tigers take care of business, and you had some good family time.
Just memories upon memories upon memories. For me, Friday night, the father-daughter dance with Mercy and my daughter. And, yeah, I did get on the dance floor. And, yeah, I got to hang out with some elite girl dads. And we had a blast, man.
Chicken dance?
Yeah, no chicken dance.
No.
But they had me at Cash Bar. And, of course, Cash Bar loosens us all up a little bit. And we had a good time. And again, some unbelievable memories, which led into, man, Saturday morning and the running of the green. I'm wearing my trophy sweatshirt today, my participation sweatshirt. The vibes are always unbelievable at the start of St. Patrick's Weekend. And St. Patrick's Weekend in Rochester is a special time. The parade is a special thing. This is hundreds and hundreds of people just showing up and having a good time, getting their run on early in the morning. And really all I wanted to say was our guy just showed up and cleaned house. That's Joey Kipchoge.
So he won that with ticket. Like, what was it, like a 5-minute mile?
I thought I saw it might have been, he might have run at the speed of sound. I know it was a sub-6 for sure, and maybe even a sub-5. I can't remember. I just remember seeing his name at the top of the leaderboard. I'm like, yep, checks out. Guy was running the Olympic trials just last month, so yeah, he shows up to the run of the green and just absolutely destroys.
Did he hang out afterward, or was he like out of there?
Yeah,
right
I didn't see.
Yeah.
I think they do an awards ceremony, and I'm pretty sure he probably hung around to stand on top of the podium at the end of the awards ceremony. But that was a great time. Got to hang out with some coworkers and some friends and see some people I hadn't seen in some time, and you know, get a nice little run in first thing on Saturday before all the festivities of St. Patrick's Day in Rochester, and then really just. Man, yesterday was just another amazing day. I mean, Saturday and Sunday, great sports weekend. When you look at everything that happened in college basketball, everything that happened in the changing landscape of the NFL, we can talk about that, and also with the Sabres and their dwindling playoff chances.
Say
the S word, and we're not going to bring up the S word?
Well, you're like, great sports weekend. No, that was actually one of the few times my son and I, we actually had appointment television, and hey, they're leading after one, and then...
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, it's Patrick Kane with a go-ahead goal, and yeah, that put an end to it.
And you mentioned the Tigers, who got their sweep on as well, and they advanced to the Atlantic Hockey Final coming up here this weekend. So, all in all, just a really rich and fulfilling weekend in the Flower City. And now we're ready to get after it this week, which coming up on Thursday, probably the best, if not one of the top 3 best days on the sports calendar.
And then to wake up this morning, because I turn my phone off normally a little early on Sunday night.
Yes.
My friend Mike Danger pointing out to me that someone from NFL Films, to honor the great Chuck Muncie,
That's right,
put together an 8-minute montage of his greatest plays to 70s style music.
It's just fantastic. It's just the football we grew up on. It was when I saw it cross my feed. It would have been his birthday. If I'm not mistaken, which is why somebody went through the trouble of putting this thing together. And it's just fantastic. He's just a big, powerful, strong back. Something that the Bills probably need out of the backfield, right? The Muncie highlight reel was something that crossed my feed as I was kind of scrolling for content and listening and kind of paying attention to initial reactions from the bracket release last night. I didn't really turn in right. This is a bad time of year for me in terms of my mind because I can't settle my mind down. I'm constantly thinking I'm trying to absorb as much information as I can with each and every one of these bracket selections.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to come out here today and BS anybody when it comes to the brackets. That's why we're inviting smart people on the show this week to kind of, help us out here a little bit here.
Yeah. And speaking of the brackets and speaking of the tournament, opening day, Thursday, we will be live. This is going to be a fun week for us here in the Sports Bars. We're at the Tap Room at Bill Gray's in the Chilai Ave location, broadcasting live from 3 until 6. You know the drill. You can come out, share a cold one. We can maybe have a win or two.
We can share a cold one and maybe a win or two.
By the way, did you know that it was our guy Brent that kind of popularized the phrase March Madness?
Really?
It was. I think the history of it, if I'm not mistaken, it was first made mention in the early, I want to say like the 1930s by a coach in the state of Illinois. He called March Madness, and then Musburger in the early 80s. You remember he was doing a lot of play-by-play for CBS. And Musburger is from the state of Illinois, and he just kind of started using the phrase, and it stuck because, well, he's Brent, and he's one of the best ever.
We can share a cold one and maybe a win or two.
Bill Gray's Tap Room. They're at Chilai Avenue. They'll have the expanded menu selection for you. And, of course, if we're talking about the Tap Room, you know that there are going to be some really great beers on tap. So join us at the Tap Room at Bill Gray's Chilai location. That's coming up Thursday from 3 until 6.
Yeah, and the way they do it now, they spread it out. So we will have certainly action all the way up until 6 o'clock, and then the evening games start all over.
Yeah, I'm less enthusiastic about tomorrow and Wednesday. I mean, how much Impractical Jokers am I going to have to watch before I realize I'm on the wrong channel?
Well, that's why you go out to the Tap Room in Chilai and just, put it in front of me. I don't have to go searching for True TV or whatever it is. 4 o'clock hour today, we're going to talk to Donna DeTota, Syracuse Post-Standard. That was a surprise. Adrian Autry, after losing to NC State, sidebar, 5 days, 5 wins for NC State.
Yeah, pretty good.
Wow, that's very good. Thinking, could Syracuse have pulled that off? Probably not.
No, that's what they would have needed to do.
That's the only way
That's the only way they were going to get in.
And that's why NC State has, an 11 seed for winning the ACC tournament. Adrian Autry kind of led you to believe that they were going to accept an NIT bid, and then Syracuse didn't. And it makes me wonder, 4 years ago, and you get a lot of these retrospects, like we were going through the beginning of the pandemic or whatever it was, and one of the things we missed out on here in our Town Danger was the fact that Syracuse, not going to get into the NCAA tournament, would have accepted under Boeheim an NIT bid. However, the Dome was under construction. They already started the renovations there. So those games would have been in Rochester. Well, now, not only do we not have them in Rochester, Syracuse doesn't want to go at all here. And that's going to be the new trend here in college basketball. The NIT, for some of these bigger programs, are more interested about the portal. They're just going to kind of not do it.
I know that rubs some people the wrong way, right? Like the basketball purist, really unhappy.
Oh, Tom Crean. Ooh, wow.
He really went off. And I was thinking to myself as he was going off, wait a minute. What network covers the NIT?
That would be ESPN.
Well, who does Crean work for again?
That would be ESPN.
Oh, right. Company man. I get his point, but it just comes off a little tone deaf. I mean, the world that we're in now with college athletics and these players and their NIL deals and in football, you got guys opting out all the time. If it's in the postseason, they want to look ahead to their future. I don't know why a program would be any different. If this is an opportunity for you to get better for next season, with the goal being we want to be in the dance, then go get it. The NIT is meaningless to you.
Or if you're a young team and you just want more action, you want to go play. Crean does have a point. He was just getting a real evangelistic about it. Like, why not? Why not go play some more basketball? Take a look at younger players. If you are a player that doesn't want to go, then don't go. Like that should be. You want to opt out? No, you don't have to go. And then just the coaches will bring whoever, even if you're down to like 7, 8 guys.
We'll talk a little bit more bracket here with Ryan Horvat, BetMGM tonight. You'll hear him later on tonight here on the Fan Rochester with Trista and with Nick. Love having Ryan on, and we got plenty to discuss here with Thursday's action, with Friday's action, and maybe there's some upsets that Ryan likes. We can kind of dive a little bit deeper into your bracket and get some winners.
Yeah, the thing with the brackets, they're saying UConn has the toughest draw there. So we'll get the thoughts here of Ryan and who he likes to get through. 61% of the time, Mike Danger, these are the things we can throw at you. Number 1 seed is going to win the tournament.
I think to myself, when I look at UConn's region, who's taking them out? If that's such a tough draw, which team is the team that's going to rise up and take out UConn? They look really, really good right now. And you've got injuries to deal with Houston. You've got injuries to deal with Marquette. I mean, if some of these higher seeded teams can battle through their health scares, maybe you put a little bit of a fear into UConn later on in the tournament. But man, I have a hard time seeing how they don't get out of that region.
Yeah, for the Sweet 16, if everything holds, get an Auburn, Bruce Pearl, SEC champs, and they're saying they're the best of the 4 seeds.
But it's also Bruce Pearl, right? I mean, like, doesn't Bruce Pearl have a history of just not?
No, he's gotten to a Final Four with Auburn.
Yeah. Okay.
No, you're thinking of Purdue.
But Purdue is another one, right? So, look, we'll dive into all of these with Ryan when he joins us here in about 10, 15 minutes or so, and we'll look at some of these first and second round matchups. I'm saying first and second round. That's the correct way to say it, right? Even though we all know the first round starts Thursday.
No, right.
Technically, first round starts tomorrow. No.
Those are the playing games.
You got it. So we'll talk about those playing games too. Ryan might give us some winners for tomorrow and Wednesday.
I don't know if you knew this or not. Wagner has the kid from UPrep.
Is it Wagner or Wagner?
Wagner College on Staten Island.
Oh, Wagner. Oh, yeah? You like Wagner? What do we think of Colorado State?
I don't know, cuz. What do you think of Colorado State?
I don't know.
Well, I think Wagner because they've got Melvin Council. He went to UPrep.
Oh, tell me about UPrep, cuz. They got a good football team. I watch them every Friday with Gino and Danger.
You sound like Bullwinkle.
This is the two voices that we have in Rochester. It's Grading Hard A or, hey, cuz, what's going on, cuz? How are you, cuz?
Ryan Horvat, BetMGM tonight.
He stops by here in just a couple few.
In my defense, Bo, who plays in the NHL, Horvat, pronounces his name Horvat.
When he was in Rochester.
No, well, now he's with, who's he with now? The Islanders.
Yeah.
Ryan Horvat is, the way you were saying.
Well, he's such a good sport. For years, we had him on with us, or I don't even know if it was for years, but for a good string of time, we kept mispronouncing his name, and he never once corrected us. So shame on us. That's your show for today. You can join us at 585-8664-FAN. Our guests stopping by, Donna DeTota from the Syracuse Post-Standard, Ryan Horvat, BetMGM tonight here in a couple few, 866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool.
So when was that? Was Friday night? Friday night. Or was it Saturday night? Over the weekend. Justin Fields got traded.
Oh, Saturday night. Yeah. I remember getting the text, getting the alerts, and then just a flood of text messages. And I wanted to engage with some of my Steeler fan friends as well. Basically just say, hey, good luck with that. If you have to wonder if your quarterback is going to be good, then he's probably not good, right? Like if you can imagine a quarterback being good, then he's probably not good. At least in the moment, he's not good. With Fields, we saw moments where it's like, oh, God, he's an athlete. Man, he's fast. Look at what he can do. Stuff we haven't seen since Michael Vick, right? Or early Kyler Murray. But it just didn't equate to wins. And there's something there that we don't see, and we don't know what that is. I mean, like, can Justin Fields improvise on the field? Yes. Does he follow the game plan? We don't know. Does he read a playbook? We don't know. Like what is it that made it such a failure in Chicago? And I'm calling it a failure because you had 10 wins as a starter over the course of 3 years, and you were dealt for next to nothing.
Right. That's a surprising thing. Now, a 6th-round pick, but depending on playing time, could be a 4th, which, if you're Ryan Poles, why? Why are you doing this move now if that's the best you can get? You would figure maybe draft night when somebody doesn't get the prize they were hoping that would fall to them in the first round. Or maybe if you really were brass, wait until August, until the inevitable happens in the NFL when some quarterback goes down. Why are you moving on from him right now? Other than danger, we want to do right by the player. We're trying to set an example.
I think that's what they're saying, and they have to say that because a good portion of the fan base didn't want Justin Fields to leave Chicago. So you have to at least give off the perception that you're doing right by the player. And Justin Fields, in my opinion, even though I'm saying he won 10 wins over 3 years in Chicago, he's a better quarterback right now than Russell Wilson.
Oh, hands down. I think that you want to see Justin Fields for the ceiling. It's not going to get any better with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson in small spurts here. I'm going to stand by my take that opening day, not only is Russell Wilson not on the roster, I don't think he's not on the roster, Danger. Not he's really not the starter.
Not making the team.
No, he's not making the team. I think that,
or they trade him or something else.
That is like a contract anybody would absorb. And if it becomes clear that this is Fields and it's going to be his team, let Russell Wilson go somewhere else to be a stopgap quarterback.
I am envious. I'm not necessarily sure that Pittsburgh has gotten better with these moves, but nobody can dispute that they've flipped their quarterback room. That's a fact. And the way they did it, to me, is something to be envious of if you're another NFL team. The way they were basically able to flip a quarterback room. I'm not saying that there's not risk involved, but there was minimal investment. They didn't have to invest a lot to get Russell Wilson. They didn't have to invest a lot to bring in Justin Fields. They got something in return for Kenny Pickett. They flipped their quarterback room with minimal investment and just a bit of risk in terms of the toxicity that Russell Wilson brings with him.
Do you think this was the plan all along, or just things kind of unfolded? Because when Russell Wilson signed, you're like, okay, from the dollar standpoint, I can see it, certainly, and this gives them options here, but what we were led to believe was that Kenny Pickett went in there and said, trade me. Okay, well, that was the invitation we're going to kind of accept. If Kenny Pickett is takes the high road and is presidential, as you want your quarterback to be, like, hey, I welcome the competition. I'm going to get better for that. Is Justin Fields really a Steeler today?
I wonder about that, and I wonder if it was as simple as them saying 1 minute Kenny Pickett is going to compete for a starting role, and then changing their tune and saying Russell Wilson has the pull for the starting role. Basically saying if you want to win the starting role, you got to beat Russell Wilson. Kenny Pickett probably just said, you know what, you're going against your word. You said I would have every opportunity to start, but now you're saying I'm going in at a disadvantage. There's a little bit of wordplay there, and we don't know specifically how it was laid out. And Philadelphia could have made, by the way, the same offer for Justin Fields, who I think we would all agree is a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett. But they didn't do that. Why? Because the second Jalen Hurts or Russell Wilson starts playing poorly, the chants for Fields are going to get louder and louder. You can stomach that in Pittsburgh. You can't stomach that in Philadelphia. You need Jalen Hurts to be the dude. So you can't have somebody nipping at his heels and a fan base saying, hey, put Fields in there because he's the same style of quarterback. He'll just be better or more athletic or make better decisions, whatever it is. They didn't make that move. They went for Pickett specifically when Fields was there as well. But the reason why I mentioned that the Steelers, and I like the way that they've moved here, is they're doing things that other teams should be doing. There's nothing stopping the Raiders from doing what the Steelers did, except for the Raiders. There's nothing stopping the Patriots from doing what the Steelers did, except they're the Patriots. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, the Steelers are just kind of moving in a way that makes you believe like their GM is competent, knows what he's doing. He's got the backing of a historic franchise that just they know how to operate around the league.
Well, I think one thing I would point to is you bring up the Patriots, right? Are they really going to go with Jacoby Brissett? He's Mr. Bridge. We're going to get quarterback in this draft. What the Patriots are probably telling us here is, because I agree with you. I thought that Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, and heck, I'll even dial it back. I thought Kirk Cousins in New England would have been a better option, but they just weren't going to pay that sort of coin. New England is kind of telegraphing their pass here, so to speak. They are going to take a quarterback. Where does this leave Minnesota, a team that is their plan going to be Sam Darnold? Because that's another team. Now, they one hand tied behind their back, I understand, because they really weren't going to go and get Justin Fields from Chicago. Highly doubt they would trade him in the division. But tell me, what is the better investment here? Russell Wilson at 1.2 or Sam Darnold at 10? Right. What am I missing with Sam Darnold?
Well, you're not. And to bring it back to the Bears for a second, I think the Sam Darnold trade from the Jets to the Panthers, I think that was the baseline that Ryan Poles was working with. I think he thought to himself, if I can get something along those lines, which I don't remember what it was. I think it was like a second and a fourth or something like that when the Jets moved on from Darnold. He was going to be happy with that. When it became clear, and I think when it became clear was when they sent Mac Jones from New England to Jacksonville for a sixth. I think when that happened, a guy who has the playoffs on his resume, leaving New England to go to Jacksonville for a sixth, you weren't going to get anything more than that for a guy with 10 career wins in the NFL. I don't care how good he's. I know wins aren't a quarterback stat. Again, if you have to imagine how good a quarterback could be, he's probably not that good. And as far as Minnesota goes, word on the street is they're taking private workout with J.J. McCarthy. So if they have their sights set on a guy, and if it's that guy, then that will be that. You can have a Darnold McCarthy kind of two-headed quarterback room and see how that plays out through the course of training camp. I like McCarthy because he's a winner, but I don't know what kind of a quarterback McCarthy will be at the next level. There are far smarter people out there that can evaluate that talent better than I can.
But it gives Minnesota fans a little something new and shiny to look at and look forward to. Isn't it refreshing? We don't have to deal with this in Western New York anymore.
It is nice. A couple of Bills notes before we get to Ryan Horvath at BetMGM tonight. Taron Johnson was extended today. He is now the league's highest paid nickel corner. It's a 3-year deal worth $31 million. And it binds him with the Bills through the 2027 season. So good for Taron Johnson, who's probably the best at that position, or at least second-team All-Pro, I want to say, at that nickel corner position for last season. So another great season for Johnson. He gets rewarded to the tune of 3 years, $31 million.
Yeah, that role is so important to the Bills here, and sometimes we kind of get overlooked. You think of Taron Johnson, you think of the big return for a touchdown in the playoff game, but he does so much more for this team.
And the other thing worth noting, and it's less involved with the Bills, but it's a name that we're all paying attention to, and that's Trey White, who has scheduled visits with the Raiders and with the Rams, depending on how those visits go. And I imagine some point here later in free agency, White will latch on, I imagine, for a 1-year deal, almost as if to say, hey, we're going to bring you on for a year, prove that you're healthy, get on the field, and then really test your value going into this 2025 free agency season.
So he stops in Vegas, and then he goes to L.A. What's the airfare these days from L.A. to Seattle? He'll be a Seahawk. Leslie Frazier. That story that Leslie Frazier and Trey White were hanging out in L.A. while White was doing his rehab last year. Those two men have that connection. So I say that tongue-in-cheek, but in reality, it's always who you know here. Look, I want to see Trey White latch on. I want him to get another opportunity. I think Bills fans should want the same.
And I think if you're in Seattle and you want that to happen, if you're Leslie Frazier, just offer him more than 1 year. If you offer him 2 years, he's probably taking it, right? Because a 1-year deal basically is a prove-it deal, and he's not going to stay with that team unless he can actually prove it. But we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out. At least a couple of teams there, Vegas and the Rams, showing interest in Trey White and taking a visit. Ryan Horvath, BetMGM tonight. Stopping by the sports bar next. We talk some brackets in the sports bar here on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills nickel corner Taron Johnson gets an extension, 3 years, $31 million. He's now under contract till 2027. Steve Tasker today on One Bills Live.
4 years now with Miami Dolphin, and Micah Hyde is probably not going to be back. Don't know yet, but looks like that way. Taron's like the last guy standing.
He's the veteran.
He's the veteran guy all of a sudden. So Taron's the guy.
Bill, yeah.
Get a guy who's been here in the building for a long time, get him signed up, and help him, let him stabilize that room back there that's seen a little bit of turnover this year.
Meanwhile, former Buffalo Bill Tre'Davious White has visits lined up with the Rams and the Raiders. Jordan Schultz is reporting that free agent safety Julian Blackmon visiting the Bills. He had 4 interceptions with the Colts last year. Sabres play a team they've never beaten tonight. Buffalo 0-5 all-time against Seattle. Our coverage begins at 10 o'clock here on The Fan. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Joined now by the host of BetMGM Tonight, Odyssey Sports betting insider Ryan Horvath. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Also, be sure to listen to BetMGM Tonight here on the Fan Rochester starting at 7 in the BetMGM Tonight podcast. More Ryan Horvath analysis there. Search BetMGM wherever you get your shows. We're approaching one of the best days on the sports calendar, Ryan. Thursday, the start of the NCAA tournament. How are you, buddy?
Doing great, guys. Yeah, it's I love football season, college football, NFL, but college hoops, it takes me a little bit longer now to get into it. I used to just get into it right away and follow everything, but now, man, I'm locked in, and this is one of the best times of the year. It really is.
Oh, no doubt. And not only the men, but now we have more interest than ever in the women's bracket, and we might be having a little action there. But let's get your thoughts here, your initial reactions to what the committee put out last night for the men's bracket.
Yeah, for sure. And with the women's bracket, I was a little disappointed this year. My cousin, she's the head coach at Illinois State. In the last couple of years, they've actually made the big dance, but this year they're in the NIT. So I'll be watching. Obviously cheering for Caitlin Clark in Iowa, but, man, I was disappointed that the Lady Redbirds aren't headed back. So, the first thing is I kind of wish the committee paid more attention to KenPom, the KenPom rankings, because a couple teams just got absolutely hosed, in my opinion. Oklahoma, for sure, KenPom had them as a 44. They had a net rating of 46. Seton Hall, Indiana State is the team that everybody's talking about. I mean, they had some nice wins. They beat a good Drake team. They beat Bradley twice. They had some bad losses. I believe they lost to Illinois State and on the road to Southern Illinois. And then St. John's. Of course, a lot of people wanted to see Rick Pitino in the NCAA tournament. But the biggest takeaway that I had as far as the teams that made the big dance was, Purdue, for whatever reason, they didn't even win the Big Ten tournament. They were rewarded. I look at this bracket right now, and the first thing that caught me by surprise and by notice was just the East region. Kentucky's the best team in the country. Obviously, it's so hard to repeat in college basketball, but I think if anybody's going to do it, they could do it. UConn, that is. And I look at the East region, and Iowa State's the 2 seed. They just went 11-2 down the stretch in the Big 12, which is the best conference in all of college basketball. They beat Houston by 30 points in the championship game. You have Illinois, who's a really good 3 seed. You have Auburn, who's in the top 10, both offensively and defensively, according to KenPom. And then you have San Diego State, who just won the Mountain West regular season and has players still from their Final Four run. And then the 8 seed is FAU. So UConn has to run the gauntlet in the East region. That was my biggest takeaway is, man, everybody's picking them. They're the heavy chalk to go back-to-back. But I don't know if they're going to make it out of that region, guys. That's a really tough bracket right there.
Well, you mentioned KenPom, and I know Auburn is like a complete team, offensive, defensive. They look really good. Is there, I don't know, I keep looking at this and I'm like, okay, which team could beat UConn? Is it Iowa State? I mean, yes, they've looked good down the stretch here, but we've seen inconsistencies in their game as well. I mean, is it Auburn? I mean, Illinois? I don't know, man. I mean, I think part of why UConn is as chalky as it is they just seem to be playing the best and more consistent brand of basketball through the course of the entirety of this season.
Yeah, so for me, it's not Illinois. I know that they just won the Big Ten championship yesterday, but I just don't trust Brad Underwood. Now, I really like their guards. Their guards are tough, they're physical, but I don't like their matchup, to be honest, against Morehead State. In fact, that was one of the biggest bets. Morehead State opened up as 13.5-point underdogs. That's down to 11.5. As good as Illinois has looked, Morehead State has some length. They have some 3-and-D guys, and they have some bigger guards. So I think that they might be able to hold their own in the post. And everybody always, wants to pick the 14 over a 3 nowadays. So I don't love Illinois in that bracket, but it would be Iowa State. The problem is, Iowa State, like I said, they've looked so good down the stretch, 11-2 in their last 13 conference games. But the problem is, when they're off, they can't score the basketball. They're so good defensively. But going against UConn, I just hate betting against UConn because every time I do it, they score 100 points. They have multiple guys that can hit tough shots. They have size. I'm not the biggest Dan Hurley fan, not the biggest Dan Hurley guy, but he's obviously a good coach, and that's why he's making the big bucks, and they won the national title last year. So for me, if I have to pick against them, it'll be Iowa State. Or maybe even Auburn because of what we said, really good offensively and defensively. The thing is, though, all these teams in the SEC beat up on each other, and I still have no idea who's any good. But if I had to pick a team in the SEC, it would be them because they play defense, unlike Kentucky and unlike, some of these other teams. But for me, I would go chalk, and I would just pick UConn. But in the bracket where I pick an upset, it'll be Iowa State going to the Final Four.
You hear him weeknights, 7 o'clock starting tonight on BetMGM tonight. Ryan Horvath, our guest here. Ryan, here in Rochester, Syracuse is our closest program. And watching a lot of the ACC, I'm like, this is not the ACC from 10 years ago. But you're thinking, okay, maybe that's just my bias. But then I think proving the point, like NC State, good for them. But the fact that they won 5 games in 5 days, I'm like, no, this conference can't be it. Explain to me how Virginia got in.
Oh my gosh! That's I'm glad that you brought them up because it was. I unfortunately bet Virginia this week after telling myself that I was not going to do it the rest of the year. My issue with them, Tony Bennett. I like him. I think tonight I'm going to have the take that Tony Bennett's the most overrated coach in the country. They lose as a 1 seed to a 16 seed. The next year they do go on that run and win a national championship. But every year Virginia's just the same team, right? They're boring to watch. They're tough defensively, but this year, they can't hit free throws. That's a team that has no business in the NCAA tournament. Every time, in the final 3-4 minutes of these games, they're shooting 45% at the charity stripe as a team. So that's a team that I want nothing to do with come March. I think they got in just because of name. You know what I mean? Indiana State should be in. Virginia has no business being in this tournament, and I'm not even going to bet them in the first 4. I think they're getting knocked out. That's a team I want nothing to do with. And you said it with the ACC. It's funny because, unfortunately, I had the flu this weekend, but I had original plans to go and check out the tournament this weekend, and I was hoping, man, I would love to see Carolina, Duke, and like you said, NC State makes that run. The conference isn't good, but don't let that fool you. North Carolina is a pretty good basketball team. I know that they just lost, but they have a top 25 offense and defense. Again, going back to Ken Pom, if you're a Ken Pom guy, they play at both ends, and they have shot makers. They have R.J. Davis. They have Harrison Ingram, who's pretty good. I love their opening matchup against Howard or Wagner. And I think that they actually have a nice little ride after that because Michigan State, very overrated. I don't like Mississippi State. St. Mary's is good this year, not great. So, if I have to pick any team to make a run in the ACC, it would be North Carolina. I think Duke has a shot to get upset in the first round. I would never touch Virginia. And Clemson was the team that I kind of wanted to buy into. I like P.J. Hall. They're big, but they're just too inconsistent. And like you said, the ACC is so weak. The only team I would trust would be Carolina.
Hey, Ryan, when we're picking first round, and I'm saying first round meaning Thursday, I know that a lot of people would correct me. Oh, the second round starts Thursday. First round game's on Thursday, Ryan. When you look at this bracket, knowing that you had teams like North Carolina State stealing some bids from teams that are more worthy, is this the most top-heavy you've seen this round of 64 in recent years? And does that lend itself to more chalky picks here in the first round on Thursday and Friday?
Yeah, I would say so. Because even earlier this year, every single week, I would hear on all the sports gambling shows on our network, everybody would talk about the same thing. Would you take Purdue? Would you take UConn? Or would you take the field? And so Circa actually put the odds out for that, and it was actually minus 350 for the field. And I was like, even though that's chalky and I would never lay a minus 350 bet, I would only bet the field. I know that these top teams are so dang good, but also, and a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity when I was an intern to cover Northwestern basketball. And of course, it was the year before they make the tournament for the first time, but I was talking with Chris Collins, and he's like, we're going to see more upsets, and you're going to see these mid-major teams make deeper runs, and eventually you're going to see one of them win a national championship. And the reason is because everybody's going to continue to pick the Blue Bloods, Kentucky, Duke. But the difference is those programs, like John Calipari, the reason he has one national championship is all they do is recruit one-and-dones. Whereas with St. Mary's, even Gonzaga, you're getting 4-year players. That's why I like Houston this year. I know they just got blown out by Iowa State, but I picked Houston to win it all before the season because they have a bunch of seniors. They play defense, and this year they actually hit free throws. They play in a tough conference, and that's what I want. I want seniors, and I want coaching. That's what I'm looking at in March. But I do think that we'll see some more upsets, and I do think that we're going to see a lot of chalky picks, like UConn. Even though they're the defending champs, everybody's betting them. They're the highest ticket percentage. They're the highest handle. Right after that, Purdue. Right after that, it's Kentucky, who I want to make the case for because they're the best three-point shooting team in the country, and they could score 100 on anybody. But again, they play no defense.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see more upsets. I think you're going to see a lot of people pick the chalk. And it won't surprise me if Purdue and UConn, neither team makes the Elite Eight. It also won't surprise me if both teams win the national championship. That's what's so great about the sport now. Is it's so much different. And it was easier to pick the brackets, I feel like, in the 90s, early 2000s, because we knew who these teams were. We knew all the players. Now, nobody knew about Indiana State until tournament time. So there's going to be a sneaky team, I think, that makes a run this year.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to kind of go with it, because last year, talking about how you're saying mid-majors, well, you had San Diego State make the Final Four. You had Florida Atlantic. We were joined by PJ Glasser last week, BetQL, and he's high on James Madison. Is there any kind of program you got your eye on? James Madison at 12 going up against Wisconsin. I mean, it's always fun when you're filling out your bracket to, put out one upset there, Ryan, and actually nail it.
Yeah, so, man, I hate to steal the thunder because I love PJ Glasser, but James Madison's my pick as well. So I like James Madison over Wisconsin. I know Wisconsin was just in that Big Ten championship game. Wisconsin was such a weird team this season. I hate betting against them at home at the Kohl Center, unless it's Illinois because they beat them every year. But Wisconsin, to start the season, the first month and a half, I was like, this is not sustainable. They were top 5 scoring offense, and then, of course, they were a top 10 defense like they always are, according to Ken Pom. But then they kind of fell apart down the stretch. And then this weekend, they couldn't miss, especially from downtown. I just don't trust that. And I love James Madison. I actually just texted PJ and I said, what scares me about James Madison is just strength of schedule. We've fallen in love with this team. They've been so good, but it won't shock me if they go out there and lose this game by 20. Now, that said, that was the first bet that I made, was I took James Madison, and then the other team that I'm kind of falling in love with is Morehead State. I did pick Morehead State over Illinois. Again, it won't shock me if Illinois plays up to their level and wins that game by 30. But I really do like Morehead State just because they have size, they have length, they could play they're really good defensively. And then the last team I'll throw at you guys, Drake. I picked Drake over Washington State. The problem after that is then they're matched up against Iowa State. This is the issue. Every year I fall in love with these smaller schools and FAU, but I completely hate the draw. It's St. Mary's right away because what the committee wants is they want the Blue Bloods. They want Kentucky, they want North Carolina, UConn, and the Elite Eight in the Final Four. So all these teams that we like get matched up against each other, or they get terrible draws. But I could see Drake making a run just because they're the best defensive rebounding team in the country. So, for example, in that first matchup against Washington State, they're really good on the offensive glass, but I think that Drake's going to be able to hold their own, get a bunch of second-chance opportunities, a bunch of defensive rebounds, and they have a lot of shooters. I like Drake to make a run.
Ryan, looking at the Midwest, there's an interesting 12-5 and an interesting 13-4. Kansas is beat up. We know how they ended their season. Do they have enough to get past Samford? And Gonzaga usually is a team that ends up being a bracket buster for a lot of us, right? We want to buy in. They're flying under the radar this year. They're at a 5 seed, which some people might say that they're overseeded being a 5 seed. But those two programs have an opportunity to match up in the round of 32. Gonzaga and Kansas. What are your takes on those two programs here heading into the tournament?
So Kansas, I want nothing to do with. I actually picked against Kansas in the opening round. What scares me is they're going to get McCullers back. They're going to get their 2 best players, their 2 leading scorers back. So that's scary when you're betting against Kansas in the first round and you're betting against Bill Self. But the reason I've stayed away from Kansas all season is depth. Even when they're fully healthy, they only go about 6-7 deep. And it's just not your typical Kansas team. I mean, we saw that. How many blowout losses did they have this season? So I want nothing to do with Kansas. Gonzaga's a weird team this year where, the only other team that scares you in that conference is, of course, St. Mary's. But they're athletic. They're your typical Gonzaga team, just without the stars. They don't have the Drew Timme or the Chet Holmgren, but they're pretty dang good. And then I like Nebraska. It won't shock me if Nebraska makes a run to the Elite Eight, to the Final Four, but I grew up in the Midwest, and I always have trouble, trusting a Big Ten team that isn't coached by Tom Izzo. You know what I mean? Like, Illinois, every year I love the squad, but I don't trust Brad Underwood. I haven't trusted them since Bill Self left. I like Matt Painter as a coach until we get to tournament time. I like Purdue until we get to tournament time. Sometimes I like Ohio State or Wisconsin, and they always let me down. But I do really like this Nebraska team. I've always been a big fan of Hoiberg at the collegiate level. Didn't love him as head coach of the Chicago Bulls, but I really like him at the collegiate level. And they got guys, man. So I do like Nebraska. Wouldn't shock me if they made a run. And I'm trying to think of another sneaky team that I like that's under the radar. I want to say Creighton, just because they got 4 guys that could go out there and give you 15 to 17 points.
Can I throw one at you? Ryan? How about an 11 seed out of the West? How about New Mexico?
Yeah, I was actually looking at that first-round matchup against Clemson. See, I was falling in love, like I said, with Clemson. I bet them to win the ACC tournament, and then they no-showed in the opening round, so now I want nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
But, man, I do like New Mexico a lot. As I look at my bracket right now, I did pick the 11 over the 6, so it wouldn't shock me. And then I look at that second-round matchup. The thing I hate about going against Baylor is, again, they got a bunch of guys that could score, but as we saw, they just no-showed in the tournament in the opening round. So I do like Baylor to beat them.
Yeah, last one for me, Ryan, and that is we're all going to do our brackets, right? But what if we want to spread our wings a little bit here and kind of go online here, and knowing that the books here don't have all this time to set their lines properly? Any advice if we want a little action above and beyond there in terms, maybe it's a player prop, maybe it's just money line? What would be your advice here if we're going to have a little bit of fun here this week?
I do like player props. I love player props, man. I love rebounds. Now, nothing's up yet, unfortunately, but there's certain guys where, I'll pay a little bit of juice, and if you look at kind of matchups, like I brought up with Drake, right? They're the best defensive rebounding team in the country. So if I could get one of their guys at 4.5, 5.5 boards, minus 120, I'll grab that. And I also like to play alternate lines in college hoops. Play a guy to have 8 rebounds, 9 rebounds. Sometimes you'll get plus 300, plus 400 odds. As far as opening round matchups, the 3 games that I bet immediately that took the most action. So I took Morehead State against Illinois. They opened at 13.5. That right now is 11.5 at BetMGM, but you could still find a 12.5. I did bet Samford. They opened at 8.5. That's down to 7.5. My advice, always with an underdog, I want 7.5. Now, that's changed a little bit in college basketball, but I'm always looking for that key number with an underdog. And I like the 7.5 because usually if it's a 3-possession game, that's when the team at the end of the game will wave the flag. They won't foul any longer. Problem in college hoops, though, you just never know what you're going to get. You get teams that are down 11 points, still fouling with 30 seconds. It drives me crazy. But Kansas is so beat up, I do like Samford. And then the last one I have for you guys is Charleston. Now, this one got hit. They opened as 10.5-point dogs. They're down to 9.5 right now over at BetMGM. I don't trust Alabama. That's my money line little pick, too. I like Charleston to beat Alabama. I'm not a big Nate Oates guy. They don't play any defense. Sure, they could score 100 in this game and win by 20. I just don't trust them. Look what they did down the stretch in the SEC. I do not like this Alabama team. So Charleston's my upset pick and probably my biggest bet, but it did go from 10.5 to 9.5. And then the other last little bit of advice I have that I like to do with these big underdogs, take them in the first half. What we see a lot, a 16 seed, a 14 seed, a 12 seed. How many times do we see, a tie game at the half, or we see a team, these Cinderella stories, they have a 6-8 point lead at the half, but then what happens at the end of these games? Talent takes over. Star players take over. But we see this a lot. The higher seed uptight a little bit, and the Cinderella story or the lower seeded team makes a run in the first half and then completely falls apart in the second half. So sometimes if I like a big underdog, I'll just bet them in the first half and stay away from the full game.
Ryan, before we let you go, do you mind sharing your Final Four and who you have cutting down the nets when it's all said and done?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, and this could change, I'm going to go with UConn because it's so hard to bet against them. I'm going to have them go against Iowa State. So I'll take UConn there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like Houston and Kentucky are the other ones I'm looking at. And I'm torn right there. I hate to – I think I'm actually going to take Gonzaga, Houston, UConn, and I'm going to go with North Carolina. I was torn between North Carolina and Baylor. And like we said, man, I hate trusting an ACC team, but they got guys, and they could rebound the basketball. Cutting down the nets, I'm going to go with Houston. I'm going to stick with my preseason pick, which every year they let me down. Kelvin Sampson lets me down. But this year, I mean, I just really like that team, man. And like I said, they have seniors. They actually hit their free throws. They're one of the better defensive teams in the country. I can't trust Zach Edey in Purdue. He's a great player, but if guys don't hit their shots and he gets in foul trouble, they're in huge trouble. And I can't pick UConn to win back-to-back because it's so tough to do. And all it takes for UConn to get beat, foul trouble for Klingon, and then a game where they finally don't hit shots. You know what I mean? So I'm going to stick with Houston. And I'm going to go. I'll stick with them.
The good news is, Ryan. Yeah, I mean, this is all in pencil, right? I mean, you guys are going to analyze the bracket tonight on your show, I'm sure, and we know we could take that advice and apply it to our own brackets and use our own common sense and our own methods as well. But everything is in pencil till we get to tip on Thursday.
It's like as I look at my bracket and I look at my Final Four, I'm like, no, I got to change this. I got to change this. I hate
Plenty of time for second guessing.
Exactly. No, I appreciate it, though, because now I'm going to have to rethink this. I don't know that I could pick North Carolina to go to the Final Four, guys. I really do. I love their draw, and I hate UConn's draw, like I said.
Ryan, thanks so much. We're going to be listening a lot this week. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for having me.
You got it. The host of BetMGM tonight, Odyssey Sports Betting Insider. That's Ryan Horvat stopping by to talk some tournament here in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
One of the things I love about the tournament, too, is just massive storylines like everywhere. Did you hear this story? So this is out of the Big West, all right? And we don't talk Big West basketball, much less Long Beach State we don't talk about. And they came off of season 18 and 14, and the AD, you know where I'm going with this, pulls in the head coach, all right, the head coach being Monson. And
Monson used to be the coach of
Minnesota,
but before Minnesota, Gonzaga.
Yes.
So like he was the guy that left Gonzaga for Gonzaga to become what Gonzaga has under Mark Few.
Right. Yeah. So Dan Monson is long time kind of salt of the earth type of coach. And so, all right, we're going to go in a different direction. But if you want to coach the tournament, you know, and like ride this out, you can. Okay, I'll do that. Don't they win the whole thing? So they fire the coach, allow him to stay on. So this fired coach in Long Beach State now is a 15.
Yeah. I think a lot of these conference tournament winners poach some of those slots that were reserved for a team like St. John's. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The committee, you know, having to make some really tough choices. And when North Carolina State wins the ACC, you didn't have North Carolina State in the tournament. They did what they needed to do, and that takes away from an Indiana State.
Well, I will say this. Like, I had to bring up Virginia. Like, what Virginia gross band. Like, I think the ACC is overrated, and we'll ask Donna DeToda about this.
I agree, man. If everything is equal, wouldn't you be better served being in the Big East if you're Syracuse? Like,
without question. But like, I'm just okay. So True TV, what day is that? That's going to be Thursday night. Virginia against Colorado State. Wouldn't you instead of the boring brand of Virginia, wouldn't you rather have Rick Pitino have them the last team in?
Yeah. Well, St. John's isn't walking through that door, fans.
No, that white suit's not coming out.
Nope. Donna DeToda joins us next hour in the Sports Bar. We'll talk some more college hoop. We'll talk about Syracuse's decision to not play in the NIT. We'll also get to some takes next. I'll drink to that is on the way here in the Sports Bar.
Yeah, I'm not saying this tongue-in-cheek. I'm really fired up for the women's basketball tournament. I've got some thoughts on that as well. And RG3 has a take on Caleb Williams, Mike Danger, that I don't know if you would agree with, disagree, or I'll kind of lay this out here. Is now he will be the presumptive number 1 overall pick.
I was watching the NHL this weekend and realized it really hit me hard that there's an element of the game that is completely gone, and I miss it, and I want to explain why I believe it's gone and why I don't know that we'll ever see it again. So we're going to have to go back and look at old highlights, to be able to actually appreciate what the game was versus what it is right now. And on a slower sports weekend, I think we would be talking about a specific play that happened yesterday in the world of sports a little bit more, but I also think it speaks to how fractured this sport has become. And I'm curious as to when this unification that we thought was going to happen is actually going to happen, if ever. I'll drink to that is on the way. Some takes on tap. And your phone calls next at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
You're listening to the Sports. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Buffalo Bills nickel corner Taron Johnson gets a contract extension, 3 years, $31 million. He's now under contract till 2027. Chris Brown on One Bills Live with more.
An extension just simply made too much sense because his cap hit this year was $12.4 million. You would assume that the Bills, in structuring this new extension for Taron Johnson, reduced that cap figure considerably. Maybe even cut it in half. That would be great because then you're saving about $6 million on the cap.
Meanwhile, former Buffalo Bill Trey White has lined up visits with the Rams and the Raiders. Jordan Schultz reporting that free agent safety Julian Blackmon visiting the Bills. He had 4 interceptions with the Colts last year. Sabres tonight in Seattle. Buffalo 0-5 all-time against the Kraken. 10 o'clock to face-off here on The Fan. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Usually there are 1 or 2 bid stealers ahead of Selection Sunday. This year there were 5, so there are more broken hearts than usual today. Oklahoma, Seton Hall, Indiana State, and St. John's, plus Pitt among the schools left out of the bracket.
But who do we blame? Do we blame the committee? Do we Paul Patino and blame the analytics?
The analytics are bullshit. I think we all should probably never mention that word again because I think it's fraudulent.
This is probably the most difficult selection process that they've been a part of.
Taron Johnson, 3-year contract extension.
The Chicago Bears, they made a move, trading quarterback Justin Fields to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mike Danger.
The Bears.
Gene Battaglia.
You're going to the father-daughter dance. Will Danger be on the dance floor? Only if it's a certain song, Gene. Okay, like if the Feather song comes on.
Feather song.
Like, you're Mr. PXY.
I know
like,
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're going to play the Feather song.
Sabres have 14 games to go in the regular season. Why did they struggle so badly against the Seattle Kraken?
Let's go, Amherst.
Go Titans. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Back in the sports bar, Donna DeTota, the Syracuse Post-Standard, will be joining us here in about 20 minutes or so. We'll talk some Q's hoops, talk some college basketball with Donna. We welcome your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326, and appreciate you stopping by. If you're watching on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, also streaming on Twitch, and of course, we sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app or on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan.
I got takes here, one of them being, sports you enjoy, Danger, on the women's side over the men's. I got a couple here. Tennis, I think the style is always better. The back and forth, the volley, more personality, it seems. And soccer, yes, soccer purists are going to hate that take, I suppose, because, well, it really is good when you get to the World Cup. But women's soccer, I enjoy it, although I thought the United States embarrassed themselves at the last World Cup. Is college basketball ready to join this list? Caitlin Clark, Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Curious to see, Danger, how the ratings are going to match up against the men they're head-to-head on Saturday. And I know people are miffed that LSU and Iowa are actually in the same bracket, in case you missed that. LSU is a 3 and Iowa being the 1. I see what the committee did here. It's the best way to get a rematch. That way, maybe unlike last year, we'll be paying attention to the Elite 8, not just the Final 4.
Well, I'm not going to diminish the accomplishments of Caitlin Clark or any of these athletes that play women's college basketball. But Gino, for me...
Oh, who cares?
It's a Francesa.
No.
For me. Me, Danger. I'm saying, I get it. I see what's happening, and I'll be paying attention to what's going on. But if you're asking me, am I going to watch a men's tournament game or a women's tournament game? Is that what we're comparing here? Because,
okay, Saturday afternoon, you're not watching Danger, I predict ABC will draw a bigger number. In part because, well, it's you're going to have multiple NCAA games, so I suppose you can spin the numbers anyway.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I enjoy watching women's soccer. Mainly because I just feel like they come off as tougher than the men's soccer players who are flopping around and rolling around in pain every 30 seconds. For me, it's a little bit of an easier watch. So I know that a lot of soccer purists hate that take. You're right, but I agree with you on that. But as far as comparing the men's tournament to the women's tournament, and again, not to diminish the greatness of Caitlin Clark, even if she's playing, I'm still watching the men's tournament game. I'll watch the highlights. I'll see what's going on. I'll pay attention. But as far as getting my full attention, the comparing the men's tournament to the women's tournament,
who cares?
I can't do it. I'm not there. But if she goes on a run, if she's in the championship game, that will be interesting. That I will pay attention to.
Okay, ticket to go to the Final Four, LSU, Iowa. You're watching that again.
I didn't watch it last year.
You missed out then.
I was on vacation. It didn't catch my attention. I was watching some NHL this weekend. And Gino, your son played hockey. I played hockey growing up. There's a part of the game that a lot of us used to love, and it's really just gone for the most part. I guess I'm asking the question, is the pro hockey game too fast? You remember that clip I showed you last week of McDavid through the neutral zone? It was like a blink of an eye and he's through the neutral. It's so fast and it's fun and it's exciting. I'm not talking about fighting being gone from the game. I'm talking about the slap shot. You rarely see a slap shot in an NHL game anymore, and it kind of makes me sad. There's a few reasons why, and I think the overall speed is the biggest reason why. There's no time for a shooter to execute a slap shot, and I'm sure that they've been coached that wind-up telegraphs exactly what's coming. Plus, given how advanced stick technology has become, let's face it, a well-executed slap shot could probably kill somebody. So don't get me wrong, you see the one-timer from Ovechkin or from Tage Thompson. When it's executed, it's nearly indefensible. I just miss seeing the well-placed rocket that blows by a goalie during a rush or even in the shootout. Give me more slap shots in hockey, Gino.
Well, I've got a bunch of thoughts on that. One, I'm glad you brought up Ovechkin. If you were an RIT fan, Casero, those are the most exciting plays, and that's really only see it now. Power play, I'm setting up top of the circle, bam. When you see the one-timer ready to come, that is exciting when that play is getting set up. But what I would suggest, Danger, is, and I saw this by accident, they did some retrospect, it was either recently, where the Nesson, they had Bobby Orr, they were doing a 1970 final against St. Louis. I'm like, okay, let me watch this. It was bad hockey. I'm watching this. I'm like, I don't even recognize the sport. Just a bunch of lumbering guys and bad goaltending. I think that's also part of it, too. When you're going to have a slap shot, it doesn't matter how fast it is. If the goalie can size you up, assuming there's no traffic in front, it's an easier, like, you're giving the goalie more time to make the save. So I think that the sport has evolved, and if it means we have less slap shots, that's fine.
Yeah, even a guy like Draisaitl, like you see Draisaitl score a lot on the one-timer, and the one-timer isn't really a clapper. It's just kind of like a weird, like I'm down on one knee and I barely bring the stick back. You don't even have to bring it back that far to get the kind of torque on a good shot that you used to be able to get with a slap shot. I guess all I'll have to hope for is that we see more empty net slap shots like we saw a couple of weeks ago. Like that, like what made that fun? It was terrible, but I also loved it at the same time. I'm like, yeah, a slap shot into an open net. Woo! That's what I'm talking about.
RG3 has a take, Danger, I'm sure. Actually, I don't know if you would agree or disagree with this. RG3 says that Caleb Williams should pull an Eli Manning and say, no, I'm not going to the Chicago Bears. If you don't remember, it was the San Diego Chargers who had the number 1 overall pick. That was 20 years ago now, and Eli pulled a power play, and he got his wish. The Giants were at 4. They swapped the quarterbacks. Look, Eli went on to win 2 Super Bowls. His name has, the family name has that cachet. What has Caleb Williams done exactly?
Doesn't matter. He can do the same thing. If he really wants to, he can do the same thing. Nothing's stopping him from doing it. In fact, I'm surprised that it doesn't happen more often. I think it's happened, 3 times with the number 1 overall pick?
Let's see, Elway and Eli.
Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson
said, if Tampa, remember how bad Tampa used to be? Tampa, you're going to draft me number 1 overall, I'm going to go play baseball. And he went and played baseball. And we didn't see Bo Jackson until down the road. And when he came to the NFL, he was remarkable, of course.
You know what the Raiders gave up? A 7th-round pick. That was it. In those days, you could hold on to the rights of the pick. And Bo Jackson's like, I'm never going to play for you, ever. Oh, the Raiders. Okay. Great.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I don't hate what RG3 is saying here. If you're Caleb Williams, would you do this? I don't know that you would, but this is where it gets tricky for Caleb Williams. You could go into the NFL with the best intentions and say, I'm going to be a good soldier. Chicago obviously doesn't have a great history with quarterbacks. They're mostly dysfunctional as an organization, but they're drafting me, and I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to give them my best. They're going to get the best version of Caleb Williams in my rookie season, and I'll do whatever they ask me to do. Look at everything that they've done to clear the path for me to be their guy. From trading last year their number 1 overall pick to, holding on to this year's number 1 overall pick, trading Justin Fields for a box of envelopes. I'm going to be their guy. All of that is great, and if that happens, fantastic, except if the Bears win less than 10 games, if the Bears don't make the postseason, then Matt Eberflus is going to lose his job. Ryan Poles might lose his job. They're going to start all over again.
That's why the mistake should have been Eberflus should have been gone, not because he did a poor job, because you want to nurture the entire environment, not have defensive coach.
It can be done. The Bills are an example of how it can be done.
Absolutely. And then you let Josh Allen, look, his rookie year, wasn't great. It really wasn't until Thanksgiving where you saw, that win over Jacksonville. I'll say this about Caleb Williams, too, going to an organization, you're like, who was the last number 1 overall pick that you realize, whoa, that guy is a franchise quarterback? That's Joe Burrow. When Joe Burrow went to Cincinnati, Cincinnati was a laughingstock. And Cincinnati was cheap, never could get it right. That guy doesn't get enough credit for transforming that organization. So it can be done where a quarterback can just kind of elevate everyone else around you.
I know that if you're curious about how I feel about all of this, I'm excited. I'm excited about all of this. I think Caleb Williams will be a better quarterback than Justin Fields, even though the Bears have a history of screwing up quarterback. I know you want me to say it doesn't matter. The Bears just screw up quarterbacks.
No, this is good.
When draft night comes and they call Caleb Williams' name with the first overall pick, I will be excited. Now, a lot can happen between now and the end of April, so I'm kind of biting my tongue and holding my breath, hoping that this actually happens. I won't believe it until it actually happens, until I actually see him wearing a Bears uniform, until I see him at OTAs or rookie minicamp. But I'm excited because if the hype is real, then the Bears are getting a prospect that many view as a can't miss, and I'll take that.
It's okay to be a fan of your team, Danger. It's okay to get excited.
I am, and I wasn't. I'm shaking my head at the return for Justin Fields, but at the same time, I don't know what else they could have done other than more chaos and more dysfunction.
I would have waited a little longer.
But then you would have had Caleb Williams and Justin Fields on the same roster?
You could have waited at least a couple weeks there.
Maybe.
Where else was Pittsburgh going to go there to enhance the quarterback room there?
Yeah, I still think it's interesting that Philly went with Pickett instead of Fields when Philly had just as much of an opportunity to get Fields as Pittsburgh did. But he is in Pittsburgh, and if you're a Justin Fields fan, you want to see him do well there, and he has an opportunity to do well there. And if he doesn't, I know this is why Steeler fans are excited too. If it doesn't go well for Pittsburgh this year, it will further expose Tomlin as the fraud that many Steeler fans see him to be.
Did you not get to the postseason last year with the worst quarterback room?
Dude,
I don't get it.
I know, and this is where they're at. This is where Steeler fan is at right now. Hey, awesome. We'll make it to the first round of the playoffs and get blown out again this year. Can't wait. That'll be great.
Then again, I say this, and I'm waving my finger here at Steeler fan, but then probably people from the outside like, well, you should be grateful for Sean McDermott. Haven't you seen? Yes. And he's the guy who gets you to a certain point.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what comes out of Pittsburgh with Tomlin this year. Because you can't say that the quarterback, you made changes at quarterback. If it was Pickett, if Pickett was the problem, he's not going to be the problem next year. If Rudolph was the problem, if quarterback play was the problem, you've upgraded. I don't know how much you've upgraded, but you have upgraded. That is for sure. On a slower sports weekend, Gino, we'd likely be discussing the heartbreak of Wyndham Clark lipping out that putt.
Wyndham.
That putt cost me millions. Millions, I tell you. Well, that moment actually sheds more light on what a joke the PGA Tour has become. The Players, Gino, used to be considered a fifth major, and now you have Scotty Scheffler repeating in a field of players you've never heard of. No knock on Scheffler because he's good. And so is Clark. But let's see how they compete with the best in the world in the 4 majors. I like golf. My daughter plays golf. I want the sport to succeed. If LIV has done anything, it's just kind of dragged PGA events down closer to the level that they're at. What happened to this merger that we heard so much about last summer? Golf is for me rarely an easy watch, but it would have been more tantalizing with a larger group of the world's best golfers shooting 20 under par on the course yesterday.
What I think the Public Investment Fund is just trying to bleed the PGA out, dragging this out here. Like, look, if the merger happens this season, I would be shocked. But you're going to see these weakened fields, and you're going to see numbers kind of declining. And the players that are remaining on the tour are going to look at their leader, Monahan, and go, what's going on here? You know, so I think the longer this goes on, more power to LIV. Now, that being said, Danger, you know what 3 weeks is from today. Yeah. So for the rest of us here, like PGA week by week, okay, yes, the TPC, that's one of the few. No, give me the majors. Give me
the majors are really
out.
all that matter. And if that's the case, then the PGA Tour is a joke. And they will continue to be a joke. And I feel bad because I do remember the players. That was always the course you wanted to, like, I got to see the players. I got to see the course. It was a blip. It didn't even register. It's been reduced to a highlight on my Twitter feed.
I didn't watch it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too much going on.
And it was a great finish. It was a fantastic finish that nobody saw. We're going to get to Donna Datota. She writes for the Syracuse Post-Standard. We'll talk some Syracuse hoop next. The Orange decide to not go to the NIT. What does that mean? Why the decision? And what about next season? We'll talk to Donna Datota. We'll talk some bracket with her as well. That's all on the way next on The Fan.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with update.
Bills news here on a Monday as the nickel corner, Taron Johnson, gets an extension, 3 years, $31 million. Johnson now under contract until 2027. Steve Tasker today with his thoughts on One Bills Live.
4 years now at Miami Dolphin, and Micah Hyde is probably not going to be back. Don't know yet, but looks like that way. Taron's like the last guy standing.
He's the veteran of the secondary
veteran guy all of a sudden. So Taron's the guy. Get a guy who's been here in the building for a long time, get him signed up, and help him, let him stabilize that room back there that's seen a little bit of turnover this year.
Former Buffalo Bill Tre'Davious White. He has visits lined up with the Rams and the Raiders. Jordan Schultz reporting the Bills are bringing in for a visit free agent safety Julian Blackmon. He had 4 interceptions last year with the Colts. Sabres hockey tonight. Buffalo out in Seattle. Our coverage will begin at 10 o'clock. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Talk some Syracuse basketball with Donna Ditota, Syracuse Post-Standard. Gracious with her time to join us here in the sports bar this afternoon. Donna, know how busy you are. I mean, we wanted to have you on today knowing that we have a bit of news here with Syracuse and their decision to not check out the NIT. Before we talk about that decision, overall, your thoughts on Red Autry's first season with the Orange? I think a lot of people would say it kind of exceeded expectation, even though they fell short of their ultimate goals.
Yeah, I would say if you were to look at this season and or to look at to suggest where Syracuse might end up, I think having 20 wins on the season is kind of an incredible barometer of where he's taken this team, given all the kind of distractions that had happened this year. There's been injuries, there have been guys that have been dismissed from the team. You know, there's just been a bunch of stuff that's happened, and I think to win 20 games this year is pretty remarkable.
Well, for a team that, you know, is still young, coaches, you know, the first year, like, explain to us the logic behind the decision of Syracuse not going to the NIT tournament.
Well, I mean, I don't know precisely what's going on with them not taking the bid, but you know, today's the day the transfer portal opened. So there is also, you know, guys, programs that did not get invited to the NCAA tournament are, you know, having to deal with a whole bunch of things, or roster fluctuation in their own rosters, players that they might be interested in who just got into the portal in the early morning hours. It opened at at midnight last night, and so there's a lot of what's going on, and I think that's probably one of the reasons, or maybe the reason, why they didn't end up playing in the NIT.
And Donna, when you look at the season and the way it kind of rolled out for Red, it seemed like he was really kind of establishing his culture. You were either on board with what he was trying to do or you weren't. We saw how much the roster changed, and I'm curious if the guys that remain on that roster, how many of those guys will remain on that roster? We know how young that team was, but man, there was a lot of enthusiasm there as well around some of those players. Do you get the sense that they were buying in through the course of the season, enough so that they may come back, that we see those sophomores kind of come back for their junior year?
Well, that's the big question. You know, that's what we're all waiting to hear, is who's coming back and who's not going to come back. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a decent amount of departures. You know, this is going to be the norm in college basketball every year. There's going to be guys who come in and guys who leave, and it's going to be this sort of ebb and flow of various personalities who come in and come out of your program. And I think probably with the staff, this is Adrian's first year. You know, he got into the portal. You know, he got the job very late last year in terms of it was after the season, and then jumped right into the portal. I want to say, like, the weekend he got the job, right? He got J.J. Starling, and soon after that they got Chance Westry. They got a bunch of really good players in the portal. And so I think that's going to be the norm. I think a lot of guys are going to leave, and a lot of guys are going to return. I think that's going to be the way of the world over the next, foreseeable future, I guess.
Yeah, Donna Ditota, Syracuse Post-Standard, our guest as the Orange. Donna, they beat NC State twice in the regular season, as you know, and it really didn't go so well. So I guess my question is, like, are the Orange really that far off? Because that could have been Syracuse in that spot, certainly, to play Duke, and then who knows what happens thereafter. Or is it just the ACC is just so level, dare I say mediocre as compared to years past, that you have an NC State running the table, something nobody expected going into that tournament?
You know what? I don't think the ACC is mediocre at all. I think there are some very good teams in the ACC, and I think NC State, So I vote in the AP poll, and I put NC State in my poll this year. This week, I put them there. I think I put them at 24 or 25 this week. What they did this weekend, or this week in Washington D.C., is remarkable. They have a pretty good team. I mean, they have depth. They have a couple of pretty good big guys. They have shooters. They have guys who defend. They have rebounders. I mean, that's a pretty good team. And maybe North Carolina and Duke in the same week. And they beat Syracuse by almost 20. So, I mean, they had a remarkable run through the ACC tournament. And sometimes teams, they for whatever reason during the season, they don't play as well as they potentially could play. And then something happens and they play great. This happens a lot toward the postseason. Now, I mean, who knows? They could go out and lose the first round in the NCAA tournament. Or they could win 4 games in the NCAA tournament. You just never know, But I think that NC State deserves a ton of credit for what they have done. I mean, they were the 10th seed in that tournament and ended up winning it.
Donna, now with this being Syracuse's third straight season without a postseason appearance, I know that there are fans who kind of look at their lot in life, look at where Syracuse is, where they rank in terms of their performance in the ACC since joining the ACC, especially when you contrast it to what the Big East has kind of become. And I know it's a pipe dream, but I just hear it from fans so often, like, oh, God, if they were just in the Big East. I mean, nothing like that is going to happen anytime soon. Or, given that it's kind of become the wild, wild west in college athletics, could something like that down the road be something that would be entertained by the university?
Yeah, I mean, I think the next big push is going to be, there's going to be the big 60 mega conference, right? There's going to be a whole bunch, and Syracuse wants to be in the big mega conference of schools. You want to be where the action is. You want to be where all the good football programs are. And then you want to bring your basketball program along, because let's face it, football is what drives the bus on all of these conversations about college athletics. And so is the old Big East ever going to happen again? No. But I had an interesting conversation with Jim Boeheim, I don't know, maybe not even a month ago or so. And we were talking about the old Big East. And he said, the old Big East has 8 or 9 programs in it. And, it was a little easier to win games in the old Big East because there weren't 15 teams. And there weren't, 14 or 15 pretty good teams that you had to play against every single week in a 20-game conference schedule. So, those days are sort of the halcyon days of basketball for Syracuse, because that was when they were the most successful. But I think they were most successful during that period because of a whole bunch of circumstances.
Well, Donna, I'll ask the question this way, and this is just my own personal experience, that watching the Orange, and I will admit being a fan of the Orange growing up, and then the Orange would be out, and then, okay, who's left from the Big East? And all of a sudden, kind of a weird thing happens, right? You're all of a sudden you're pulling for St. John's or Villanova or Providence or whoever it is because you wanted to show the rest of the country that we were in the best conference. I just don't get the sense that I don't know if it takes a generation or if it's ever going to have that we're just so passionate about ACC basketball. Although I will say this, though. If Clemson does get a few wins there, I'll be happy for Joe Girard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you may be overstating it a little bit. I think when Syracuse was playing in the Big East, there were lots of people that really wanted Georgetown to lose. There were a lot of people that really wanted St. John's to lose. There were a lot of people that really wanted Georgetown to lose. So I don't know that there was a whole great love for that conference of individual schools, but I do think people appreciated the smaller type of Northeast geographic regionality in a sense. All those schools were pretty close to each other. You could drive to any one of those games if you wanted to see a game, and it's become so much different in this era of college sports.
Donna, just looking at the tournament and the ACC teams that did get the bid, who do you like? I mean, you've had the chance to watch and observe all of these teams, whether you're talking about North Carolina or Clemson or Duke. Any of these teams, North Carolina obviously being a 1 seed in their region, do you think they have what it takes to go all the way, or do you see them as potential upset candidate here, in the early rounds?
Oh my God, I am the absolute worst at picking the brackets. I mean, we have to all do it here in our office I think we're going to put it online. You do not want to ask me to pick your bracket. There's nobody worse.
I'm not asking you to pick the bracket. Just, handicap the ACC for us a little bit.
Handicap. Well, I mean, sure. North Carolina is the best team. They have the player of the year in the conference and a player of the year candidate. If Zach Edey wasn't going to be the player of the year, R.J. Davis would certainly be under consideration of being the player of the year. He's had an incredible year. He's a great shooter, great scorer. They have Armando Bacot in the middle, and they've got a lot of nice little supporting pieces. Elliot Cadeau is a nice little young point guard. They have Harrison Ingram, a transfer, who's a forward for them who can shoot it and who can score. They have a lot of really nice pieces. Duke, I'm not as enamored with. I thought Clemson might be able to make some noise in the ACC tournament. I think they have a really nice team, but for some reason, they just haven't been able to quite put it together in bigger games. Like, they've lost a bunch of games this year, and I don't really get it. I think they have a really nice team, so I'm not sure why they've lost. Let's see what their record is. They're 21-11. They've lost 11 games this year. And I don't really get why. I think they have a really, really nice makeup of their team. They have a great big guy. They have two good big guys. They have Joe. They have Chase Hunter, an experienced point guard. I like that team a lot, but they just haven't been able to win enough games for whatever reason. I think Pittsburgh's really good, and I kind of wish Pittsburgh was in the NCAA tournament because I think that they could make some noise in the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, they're not playing anywhere in the postseason. And let's see what happens with NC State. I mean, it was an exhausting week for them. They won 5 games in 5 days, but I think that's a team they're very deep. And I think that's a team that could withstand, some foul trouble or some guy getting hurt or something like that along the way, which sometimes happens in these games.
Donna, one thing we love, amongst many, all the storylines when you get to the NCAA tournament. Before you came on, we were talking about the Long Beach State head coach, Dan Monson, who was fired, and now all of a sudden he gets his team into the tournament. So where does that story go? One, I'm going to be curious. I never thought I'd be into Wagner basketball, but that story, the point guard Melvin Council Jr., he is from Rochester. He played all 40 minutes in the championship game because they're down to 7 players, Donna. How could you not? Are there any storylines, any players that you're going to be keeping an eye on here coming up in the tournament?
Well, I'll tell you about one player who is from New Hartford, New York, which is so upstate, and another upstate guy. His name is Frankie Policelli. He plays for the Charleston team, and they've got I think they play Alabama in the first round. It's going to be a really tough game, but he starts for that team. He's a significant member of that team. He's a really nice kid, and cheer for Frankie in the bracket. I would also say that become fans of Colgate. Matt Langel has done a remarkable job with that program. They've been to the NCAA tournament 4 straight years, 5 of the last 6 years. They just keep winning. They've dominated the Patriot League for a number of years. The kids on that team are just really good guys, and he plays 10 guys this year, 9 or 10 guys this year. And so they have an extremely tough assignment, and that they have Baylor, a really good, big athletic team that, is going to give any team in this tournament trouble. But if you're looking for like a bunch of good guys to cheer for, that's my pick.
All right, Donna, so if we don't want to look at your bracket, where should we not go to later this week? What are you working on at the Syracuse Post-Standard?
Right now I'm working on a story about Colgate, but I don't know if we're publishing our brackets or not. I think we are. We just got a note about it this afternoon, and I reminded the big boss here that I'm so bad at this. You really don't want me to do it. But so I don't know what we're going to do with it. I don't know if it'll be online. I assume it might be.
Donna, one last thing here, because I know you're primarily covering the men's team, but Syracuse women, since we are so provincial in Rochester, you think you're provincial in Central New York? No. Daisha Fair is from Rochester. I don't know if you knew that or not, but
of course I know that.
Yeah. You played for the Bonnies. Just kind of give us not only your thoughts on Syracuse here, but just where the sport is right now, women's basketball.
Yeah, I don't think enough people nationwide know about Deasia. I really don't. I mean, she's had a remarkable season. The amount of times this year she has rescued her team in the fourth quarter with some kind of crazy, 15 or 16-point fourth quarter to get this team to win is remarkable. She's had a crazy good year. She's a really good player. She's the 5th all-time leading scorer in NCAA history, women's basketball history, which is just mind-boggling to me. And I don't think enough people, I think people in Rochester, I think people in Syracuse appreciate her, but I don't think nationwide enough people know who she is and appreciate what she's done at this program. And that's my little pitch for Deasia.
Appreciate the time, Donna. We know how busy you are. Thanks for carving out a few for us here in Rochester.
All right. Thanks, Gene. Have a great day.
You got it. Thanks, there she is, Donna Ditota, Syracuse Post-Standard. Stopping by on the sports bar. Do you think Donna that entire time thought she was just talking to you, and there was that? Did she recognize that there were 2 people in here, or was it just you?
I don't know. She was, she was a little
frazzled.
A little frazzled. She had everything. Well, I get it. I mean, it's portal day, and they're probably trying to figure out, all right, who's staying, who's going. A lot of phone calls. Doesn't want to miss a phone call. So I appreciate her on such a busy day where you don't realize it. This is like the new norm. And I'm wondering, is this really serving college basketball if we're putting the portal today? Like, you can't wait a couple weeks on this?
Well, one thing I got from her is we want to pay attention to what Charleston does against Alabama. Did you catch the star name?
What's his name?
Frankie Palicelli. Of course we're going for Charleston against Alabama because he's Italian, Gino. Hey, Frankie Palicelli from Central New York.
From New Hartford.
New Hartford, playing for Charleston. Of course they're going to beat Alabama. Of course a 13 is going to beat a 4 because he's Italian. Appreciate Dawn. She's the best. Don't look at her bracket, though.
No.
She does not sound very confident in her bracket predicting abilities. Donna needs to understand, well, I don't know, Gino. I mean, you and I, I think everybody here in the office expects you and I to, have a really good bracket. It's Gene, you always have a good bracket. Me, on the other hand.
No, honestly, some years, yes. Some years, well, that was fun. Like last year, not so good. But that was, really bad, in fact. If you had UConn, 2 thumbs up for you last year.
But it's fun. But when it's your livelihood, I suppose you probably have to take it a little bit more seriously. But it's fun. It should just be fun. And it's been fun talking brackets, whether we're talking to Donna or Ryan Horvat, who joined us earlier this afternoon in the Sports Bar to give us some of his thoughts on the tournament as it's been unveiled.
That opening day of the tournament is so much fun because we're all alive. We all have action on this, right? So come on out, Taproom at Bill Gray's, Chilai Avenue, as they're going to have some food specials with the poppers and everything else.
Give me the deep fried pickles.
Yeah.
I want one of those and a cold one. And if I have a plate of deep fried pickles and a cold one, I will have zero complaints.
I think I might just hang out afterward, have the great plate, and just be totally satisfied.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get a great plate at Bill Gray's?
Hey, cuz, I want to get a great plate, too. Can I get a great plate at Bill Gray's?
Yeah, come and get a great plate at Bill Gray's. Or get the fried pickles with danger.
Okay, cuz, I'll be there. This is what goes on in my mind. I'm slowly losing my mind.
Well, this is your neighborhood. This is that's part of it. You're a product of your environment.
I walk around all day in my house, and I'll just talk to myself in the 2 Rochester accents, and my family thinks I'm losing my mind. They have to remind me, oh, you are an only child. This is how you must entertain yourself. I'm like, yeah, I am kind of entertaining myself, just walking around going,
oh, yeah? What are we having for dinner? Get that out of the oven.
Hey, cuz, what's for dinner? That smells pretty good over there.
I'm still trying to figure out, how is Rochester voice guy with Bullwinkle? or is Bullwinkle
it's one of 2 guys. Yeah, it's either the hard guy with the hard A.
Hey, what are you? Oh, I work at Kodak. No, I used to work at Kodak. Then I got laid off.
Oh, yeah, I worked over there at Bausch & Lomb, too, cuz. They laid me off, too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's just one of 2 guys. Just go back and forth. All right, we got to take a break.
We need a break.
Couple of Bills-worthy notes here coming out in the last few minutes that we should get to. A player that the Bills are visiting that may be of interest. A player that got extended, and a player that's on his way out of Buffalo that's getting a look-see from some other teams on the West Coast. We'll get to all of that next here in the Sports Bar on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. Sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
All right, before we get to happy hour, we have time for your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. A couple of Bills notes here to mention. One being Taron Johnson becoming the league's highest paid nickel corner. It's a 3-year extension, Gino, now up to $31 million with that contract of Johnson's set to expire here at the end of this upcoming season. He's now signed on with the Bills through the 2027 season.
It's funny because, like, if that was just corner money, we'd be like, okay, that's just average. Like when you see what L'Jarius Sneed will go for, you'll wonder what. Well, the Bills, not every team runs primarily nickel, which the Bills do, and Johnson is so valuable. And you heard one of the updates, we were running the soundbite from Tasker today. It also, with the benefit here, Danger, is that you have a little bit of continuity. You just can't turn everything over back there, knowing that you're going to have 2 new starting safeties, assuming Micah Hyde does not come back. To have Taron Johnson back there, that's kind of great value. Also, too, it's going to give you some cap relief. So if the Bills want to do something additional here, maybe they can here, as Johnson will lower that number here for 2024.
We should also mention that an outgoing Buffalo Bill, a Bill that was cut before the start of the league year, Trey White, teams are starting to show a little bit of an interest in Tre'Davious White. He's got scheduled visits, I should say, with the Raiders and with the Rams out west. And all of this kind of could lead to what I think the most likely scenario is a team saying, all right, we'll sign you. It's a 1-year deal. We need to make sure that you're actually healthy enough to play this season before it actually can test the market for real before the 2025 season.
I use this word flyer. That's what you're taking on Tre'Davious White. And if he's going to make these trips here and he's going to not get the big bonus, it's going to be kind of 1 year, just a lot of base, and you got to make the team. Let me just ask this. I guess there's some cap implications, but could you ever see him perhaps just waiting and coming back to Buffalo in the summer? I'm not sure if that's even possible if the Bills are designated as a June 1st hit. But Trey White, we should all be ruling that he latches on somewhere.
And Trey White, by the way, will be 30 this time next year. We always talk about that life cycle of a corner in the NFL. There's also a player taking a visit with the Buffalo Bills, Gino.
Yeah, Julian Blackmon, who... We were talking about this. Who is he? Well, you didn't know the names really of Jordan Poyer. You may have known Micah Hyde, but Julian Blackmon last year, 4 interceptions with the Colts, played his college ball at Utah. And again, safety, 3rd-round pick from the year 2020 with the Colts, as I had mentioned, and he's out there. Yeah, he tore his Achilles on October 23rd, 2021. So it took him a little more than a year to get back to where he was. So think about that. 2022 was almost lost for him, but 2023 had a fine season with the Colts.
Still young, 25 too as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll have some suitors. Not sure what that dollar figure will be if the Bills go ahead and make him an offer. We did learn a little bit more about the dollars attached to Curtis Samuel's new deal with the Bills. 3 years. $24 million, fully guaranteed first year. $5 million of his 2025 base salary is also guaranteed. So at minimum for the Bills here, it looks like a 2-year commitment with cap hits of just under $4 million this year, $9.7 million in 2025, and $10.3 million in 2026. But again, that 3rd year, there is an out in the offseason ahead of that 3rd year of 2026. And there's no guaranteed money that year, along with a potential cap savings of $8 million before the contract takes its place in the top 51. So a $1 million roster bonus would be due on the 5th day of the 2026 league year. Long way of saying this is a 2-year deal for Curtis Samuel.
Okay, I'm looking to get the flow chart out here. I love it.
Yeah,
I love the dollars.
Move.
This is a great move for Brandon Beane.
Yeah.
Love the signing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. If you're looking at the flow chart, as our buddy Jeremy at WGR always says, if it's your team signing the free agent, you love the move. It's another team signing it, not for that money. Too much money. Way too much money.
I was on the phone today with one of our advertisers. Said, "Hey, what do you think about the receiver that the Chargers let go, Mike Williams?" I'm like, I don't know. Mike Williams is a fit.
He doesn't feel like the kind of guy that works in Buffalo. Like, they want guys like Curtis Samuel. They want separators. They want guys that are crisp in their route running. And Williams is kind of along the lines of what I would think Gabe Davis is, right? Big guy.
I think more physical. I think that would be. But
Sure.
Gabe Davis was actually a pretty good blocker.
That's right.
Yeah. So I can hear you on that, but I don't know if it is a fit. I think the Bills right now, Danger, actually, with when you factor in Mac Hollins, I think they're probably done picking up the 2 receivers now for the draft. And what I was suggesting the draft, again, I feel like the contrarian here. If it works out in round 1, great. But Bills fans, brace for not round 1. There are holes everywhere on this defense. You need to replenish. You really can't say holes right now on the wide receiving core. You could say upgrades on the wide receiving core, but there are holes on defense right now. I would say second-round receiver feels right to me.
Yeah. I've just always believed that as good as and as deep as this wide receiver class is, you could probably get the value that we know Brandon Beane looks for in the second round with the guy that you select there, and make sure that that first round guy you get isn't a guy that you necessarily need out of need, but more the best player available. Maybe it is a wide receiver.
Well, I recently started doing dad runs again, Danger, just because I'm so out of shape. You know, when you go on a dad run, you start to think about things, and I had this thought. I'm like, I don't know if this is clarity, and I don't know if I'm planting my flag. And
I think the best takes happen when you're on a walk or a run. When you have nothing, but you have a clear mind, that's when the best takes happen.
Okay, here's the take. We have completely ignored, right? The Bills really don't have a plan at safety. It better not be Rapp and Lewis. Those are great backups. And the idea that Julian Blackmon is coming in today for a visit, I think he's a starter if he comes in the Buffalo.
No question.
Yeah, so this is where I'm going with this. What do the Buffalo Bills like in a lot of players? Versatility. What do they like in their players? Special teams. I'm thinking that if Cooper DeJean is there at 28, the safety out of Iowa, a guy who has a penchant for making big plays, who played safety but could be corner. I'm not sure where he projects.
Well, if they get Blackmon, I don't know that you need to, because Blackmon fills that void, right? He's young. He's 25. You can have Blackmon on this roster if you sign him. He could be your guy for the next. He could be your Rapp, and Blackmon could be your Poyer and Hyde.
You and I take different paths on Rapp. I see Rapp as Mr. Stopgap, and there was a reason Rams kind of let him go. I think that Blackmon and somebody you draft, and also this is why you keep Cam Lewis and Rapp around, because whoever you draft might need a little time. So again, Julian Blackmon is only a visit, nothing.
Nothing has materialized from that. But if you were to sign him, I think your defensive backfield is pretty good. I think you're pretty set. I mean, you want to bring in some youth, sure. I don't know that you would go first round with a safety or a safety who could play corner or a corner who can play safety. But I still think at that moment, given what you've done, you've afforded yourself the ability to take the best player that's on your board.
What percentage do you put that Micah Hyde comes back?
0.
You're not giving it like 1?
He's not coming back. Unless he's coaching. You bringing him back as a coach to the organization?
Well, did they not bring back Josh Norman? Like, why would you bring back Josh Norman other than...
Because he's healthy.
well, that, and they wanted maybe... I always viewed him as, okay, go talk to Kyrie Elam. Try to get him on track.
I get that. And I think you could get that from Micah Hyde, but not as a player, because his neck and his head and his back and everything that kind of like slowed him down here the last few years, that's nothing to be trifled with. And we said Leighton Vander Esch, 6 seasons, man. I love that player.
Wow, that's how long I know we've been on the air here, Danger, because you had a man crush.
Totally. I mean, you know how I love linebacker play. Leighton Vander Esch, oh, God, he just that football name and everything. I wanted that guy.
When you start talking about a prospect, but then your inflection gets all weird. Like you were like, Saquon, Sharkley? That was also Leighton Vander Esch.
Leighton Vander Esch.
All right, so
loved the player.
So are we using the inflection out of the wide receiver out of Georgia?
What are you talking about? Are you talking about Ladd McConkey? Ladd McConkey could be the guy.
Ladd McConkey, round 2, Danger. Who says no?
Who says no? I'm kind of smitten, head over heels. That's my guy at wide receiver for the Bills. There are a lot of good wide receivers, but the guy that I think would come into Buffalo and immediately, like, boom, he's just in. You know he's going to be, like, McConkey is that guy. That's me. I'm not sure who's going to be there. I don't know how long he'll last. I don't know what the Bills think of him. I know that they spent time with him at the Senior Bowl. They didn't meet with him at the Combine. But that's the guy I'm pulling for the Bills. But Leighton Vander Esch, 6 seasons, Gino. Why? Because of the neck. Because of the neck. And do you think Micah Hyde wants to come back? I'm sure he wants to come back, but there are probably some other factors at play that are saying,
Well, it's been how long now? Not quite 2 months, but pretty close here at the end of the season. The Bills haven't announced anything here yet.
Yeah. Well, they don't really have to. He's a free agent, right?
Right.
Yeah. If he sits out a year and, decides to retire because the phone doesn't ring, do you bring him back and make him part of your coaching staff if you're Sean McDermott?
Second, but that doesn't. When does that ever happen, though? Like the player that you respect. Like how many years do we? The Bills should have Jim Kelly as your offensive coordinator. No, you have no idea what goes into coaching and how these guys really don't have a life. And if you're Micah Hyde, don't do it. Don't go into coaching, man. Go have fun with your family.
Yeah, enjoy your time. Happy hour is next. The tournament has been announced. Looking over this bracket, I'm just scrutinizing every single one of my picks, second guessing everything constantly. It's going to be hard to sleep for the next few days. I'm not going to lie. We'll get to that. We'll get to our conversation with Ryan Horvat, what we learned from that as well, and more from around the NFL. It was a busy sports weekend. Sabres after dark tonight, too. We'll touch on all of that in a round of shots. All coming up here during Happy Hour on The Fan. Rochester, from upsets to buzzer beaters, nothing compares to college basketball in the month of March. It's Mike Danger for FanDuel Sportsbook, official partner of 95.7 The Fan. Heard us talking to Ryan Horvat earlier today with some of his favorite upsets, and we'll have plenty on the docket for Thursday and Friday. Sometimes you're on the wrong end of those moments, those buzzer beaters. And that's why FanDuel is giving everyone a no-sweat bet from now until March 20th. And it doesn't matter if you're new to FanDuel or if you already have an account. You'll get bonus bets back if your bet doesn't win. You can even use your no-sweat bet on a college basketball parlay. So download the FanDuel Sportsbook app if you don't already have it by going to FanDuel.com/Mike, M-I-K-E, and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and physically present in New York. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
I'm Erin Hawksworth, here to help you beat the books with BetQL.
live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
We have Bills news on a Monday as nickel corner Taron Johnson gets an extension, 3 years, $31 million, highest paid now at the position. He's under contract till 2027. Chris Brown on One Bills Live has more.
An extension just simply made too much sense because his cap hit this year was $12.4 million. You would assume that the Bills, in structuring this new extension for Taron Johnson, reduce that cap figure considerably. Maybe even cut it in half. That would be great because then you're saving about $6 million on the cap.
Meanwhile, former Buffalo Bill Tre'Davious White has visits lined up with the Rams and the Raiders. Jordan Schultz reporting the free agent safety Julian Blackmon visiting the Bills for interceptions as a starter with the Colts last year. The Saints signing free agent defensive end Chase Young. Sabres tonight in Seattle, 10 o'clock, our coverage. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Usually there are one or two bid stealers ahead of Selection Sunday. This year, there were 5. So there are more broken hearts than usual today. Oklahoma, Seton Hall, Indiana State, and St. John's, plus Pitt among the schools left out of the bracket.
But who do we blame? Do we blame the committee? Do we pull Patino and blame the analytics?
The analytics are bullshit. I think we all should probably never mention that word again because I think it's fraudulent.
This is probably the most difficult selection process that they've been a part of.
Taron Johnson, 3-year contract extension.
The Chicago Bears, they made a move, trading quarterback Justin Fields to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mike Danger.
The Bears.
Gene Battaglia.
You're going to the father-daughter dance. Will Danger be on the dance floor? Only if it's a certain song, Gene. Okay, like if the Feather song comes on.
The Feather song.
Like, you know, you're Mr. PXY.
I know
like,
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're going to play the Feather song.
Sabres have 14 games to go in the regular season. Why did they struggle so badly against the Seattle Kraken?
Let's go, Amerks.
Go Titans. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
All right, I'm just pulling up the percentage chance the Buffalo Sabres have to make the postseason. What are we up to now? Ooh, 6.7% chance.
Yeah.
6.7% chance that the Sabres.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Slight.
Yeah!
Needed that win in Detroit, but Detroit didn't do themselves any favors by losing to Pittsburgh, and now Pittsburgh has a little bit more life as well, and this is going to be the dance for the next few weeks.
Yeah, the Sabres are farting around, so
barely.
I mean, they'll try to gut it out tonight up and see. It is weird how they never beaten this team, 0-5 all time against the Kraken,
and they're going to be desperate as well as they're clinging to a 1.6% chance of the postseason. Forgot how good the Kraken were that first season, and now they're basically clinging to their playoff hopes with tonight's game. So that's 10 o'clock tonight coming up here on the Fan Rochester. We appreciate you stopping by the Sports Bar. Feel free to pull up a stool. Our phone number is 866-4326. You can also reach out to us on Elon's Twitter. That's X at the Fan Rochester. And appreciate you stopping by and leaving a comment on our YouTube channel at the Fan Rochester, streaming on Twitch as well. Search out the Fan Rochester there. And of course, you'll always hear us sounding our best in the free to download Odyssey app or your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan.
So we will get to college basketball. We'll get to some Bills news today, but because we like following NFL uniform changes, and there are 3 teams we knew they were changing. The Jets are going to keep
Don't hold on a second here, pal.
All right.
Are you getting into this without you? I mean, you can't just spring hot uniform talk on me without alerting me of this. I didn't see this.
There's a reason for this. So the Jets, Broncos, we have an idea that what they're going to do, add a little more white to the shoulder pads. And I'm of the opinion this is not hot uniform talk, but Cal McNair
kill the music.
Yeah, he posted a picture. He's leaking the picture himself of the new Houston Texans uniforms. Now, the initial report were that the Texans were going to incorporate the Love You Blue into it and everything else. And I'm looking at this. Do you see this, Danger? It looks like they're the Atlanta Falcons.
I haven't seen it. Hang on. Who's got that? You said Cal McNair?
Yeah. Or just type in Texans uniforms. That's going to pop up.
Okay, let me see here. That is that the same Cal McNair? No, it is not the same Cal. Texans uniforms. Hang on.
Tyler Milner from our sister station, 610 Sports in Houston.
Oh, okay. So what I'm seeing here is a white jersey, dark blue number with the red around the outside. Looks like Tank Dell and Nico Collins are sporting the new threads, right? More white. They do look like the Falcons, except that blue is a dark blue. It looks close enough to the Falcons where you could mistake them, yes. What I don't like about Atlanta's getup, I mean, there's a lot to not like about it, but I hate the ATL right in the center of the chest. I don't know what it is about that just bugs me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that. But and this is kind of modeled the same way. It's got, was it Houston? It looks like it says Houston across the top of the number frame there. I'm going to reserve judgment. I see what they did here too. They got like the little, like a
like the horn
or something there on the shoulder pads.
Yeah, hot or not? I don't know.
Where am I at with this? This is a tough one, Gino. I got to get a verdict, I guess. If I had to give a verdict, what would it be?
Not great, Bob.
Yeah, it's not great.
No,
I don't think it's great. Not necessary. I didn't know that it was necessary. But look, they're a team that's going to capitalize on exceeding the expectations last year, right? Nobody really thought Houston was going to be a playoff team. The rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach, and the stars aligned, and they made it to the postseason. Can they do it again this year? Are they the class of the South?
Will they be the team that is thrown in the spotlight? Because this time last year, we were like looking at Kansas City. Who did they get to host? It ended up being Detroit, which made sense because Detroit was Houston could be that team going to Kansas City in the opener.
Yeah. Who else is on Kansas? Now that's a fun exercise.
Yeah.
Now we're talking. Who else is on that Kansas City schedule that they could line up there for kickoff weekend?
Well, of course, you get the divisional teams.
Yeah. The Chargers would be fun because it would be Harbaugh, right? You would get Harbaugh in there. But I feel like you could get a better matchup than a divisional game to kick off the season.
All right. So you have the Ravens.
All right. So a rematch of the AFC Championship game.
Baker Mayfield in the Bucs.
Nah.
Texans, we mentioned. The only other team going in that's not divisional would be, actually, you get Cincinnati, too.
Okay, Cincinnati would be interesting.
Cincinnati, but that feels like Sunday Night Football prime time. I don't know if they want to go that big. You get the Saints.
Nah.
No.
It's Baltimore.
I think it's Houston.
You think so? Yeah, Baltimore for me. More eyeballs. Rematch of the AFC Championship game. Lamar Jackson versus Mahomes. CJ Stroud is nice, but he's not Lamar Jackson yet. He maybe will be eventually. Or maybe those new threads are enough. Maybe that's what they were hoping. Hey, new threads, put us in the kickoff game. What do you think? All right. Bills news?
Taron Johnson. $31 million he gets on the extension. He's going to lower his cap figure this year. Highest paid nickel corner, which you hear that like, wow, they overpaid. Well, how many teams actually employ a nickel corner? Tasker made a good point on One Bills Live saying, hey, you're going to have two new starting safeties, assuming Micah Hyde doesn't come back. Tre'Davious White's gone. Let's keep some continuity. And, there's this too. Taron Johnson's really, really good. Very good. Knows the intricacies of this Sean McDermott defense. So I don't think any Bills fan would have a problem with this, especially considering it's only over 3 years here.
Trey White taking visits with the Rams and also the Raiders.
And then eventually, if he's on the West Coast, another stop in Seattle.
Yeah, where's that Seattle visit? Yeah, that's the one we're waiting on. And also a player taking a visit with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and so this is a safety who played for the Colts. And
Blackman.
Yeah, his name, Julian Blackman, free agent, drafted in the third round. 2021 in October, Achilles injury, and he couldn't regain his starting job in 2022. Did for 2023, so could be one of those under the radar type of guys that doesn't get all the kudos here out of. But that was like Jordan Poyer when he came in. So to me, you need more competition at the safety. But again, this is not a signing; it was just a visit today.
We spoke earlier this afternoon with the host of BetMGM Tonight, Ryan Horvat. You'll hear Ryan along with Trista and Nick coming up later on tonight on the Fan Rochester, just getting his initial thoughts on the tournament. We've got our brackets in front of us, and you're going to be filling them out here through the course of the week. You're a sheet of integrity guy, right? You're a one sheet only?
Yeah, absolutely. Hedgers are losers. Like what anybody could fill out multiple ones.
So I know that you're not going to divulge any secrets, and you're not going to share anything, but you haven't filled it out yet. You're going to continue to do your research. You're deliberate.
Well, I had a line of questioning about the ACC with both Ryan and Donna DeTota joined us earlier, and Donna, as you might expect, was saying no, the ACC is just fine. And my eyes tell me something else. And you could say, well, NC State, look what they did. What a great story. And I look at the other one like, wait a second. They shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't have an NC State win 5 games in 5 days. That just tells me that North Carolina and Duke and everybody else here ain't what they used to be. So this is not the ACC we're used to. And Ryan Horvat agreeing with me a little bit on that. Take for case in point, Virginia. How did they get in?
Terrible.
Gross.
Yeah. I don't think anybody feels good about that. I brought up a program to Ryan. They're going in as an 11 seed, and I think they're going to beat their ACC opponent in round 1. That's New Mexico. And you want to know why I'm big on New Mexico, beyond just the fact that I think they're a better team than Clemson, more balanced team than Clemson. You know who their head coach is, right? Richard Pitino.
Oh, that's
Avenge me, son! Avenge me! Rick Pitino doesn't get in, but Junior does. Yeah, New Mexico could get past Clemson. Hell, New Mexico could scare Baylor in the second round if you really thought about it. Why not?
The 12-5 matchup. Boy, if you were with us last Wednesday, we asked PJ Glasser, who's the team you got to pick? Oh, no doubt, James Madison.
Yeah.
James Madison didn't get a 14 or a 30. They gave him a 12.
Yep.
So they're going up against Wisconsin. So there's your 12-5.
I think if you're a fan of Wisconsin, you are nervous about this matchup. Your eyes tell you this is going to be tough. And if you're a James Madison fan, you're saying, yeah, this is going to be tough. But this is all James Madison has done all year is win. They just 31 wins or something like that.
Yeah, same record as Florida Atlantic had last year, 31-3 entering the tournament.
I mean it's pretty good. Look, I know it's not the same competition that Wisconsin plays, but Wisconsin, getting a little bit better here after being pretty inconsistent through the course of this season. I just think there's, as always, just so many fascinating matchups, fascinating storylines to follow here in the first 2 rounds. What I'm excited about this week more than anything, Gino, is the opening day of the tournament, and us being live at the tap room at Bill Gray's, the Chilai Ave location. So we'll be there from 3 until 6 watching the tournament, having cold ones, having some unbelievable apps from the Bill Gray's tap room. Expanded menu. Give me the fried pickles and a cold one. And Gino, you won't hear a single complaint out of me all afternoon long. So join us. Bill Gray's, Chilai, Thursday. That's this Thursday, starting at 3 o'clock.
We can share a cold one and maybe a win or two.
Yeah, you know the way this works, too. Like, when we go to break, we try to say hello. We try to engage with you as much as possible. And then, when the show's over, we hang out. And that's going to be a fun night there. Tap room at Bill Gray's for March Madness. Again, Chilai Avenue location. And if you're not familiar with the area, just be advised. The restaurant is facing Chilai Ave. The actual tap room is in the back. Yeah, so you parking in the back is the veteran room. But if you park in the front, you can just walk through the restaurant.
Sure thing. Love that. Can't wait. And you're not going to share or divulge your picks until we get closer to Thursday.
No, I'm not
Will I get it on Wednesday? Can I get it on Wednesday?
I'm not doing this for the radio BS of listen longer to see who Gene picks.
No, you don't trust anybody, and you want to keep your picks yours. They're your intellectual property.
No. Danger, I like to absorb as many opinions and data points, and people can sway opinions. Like, I think we might have changed. I'm going to listen to Ryan Horvath tonight on BetMGM because he's like, North Carolina. I'm like, I think you and I are both like, really? North Carolina? They lost to Syracuse. I'm not so sure they're about
Yeah. Yeah, especially if Michigan State can get past Mississippi State. Michigan State, North Carolina.
Again, Michigan State. Isn't it like every year they're the first team up? Like, again, they're going to be the first team up on Thursday.
Yep. Looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun on Thursday. And, maybe through the course of the week here, I can get Gene to give a lean or two on which
you and I will give by Wednesday. How's that sound?
Tomorrow on the show, PJ Glasser stops by. Normally we have PJ on Wednesday, but PJ is busy with the tournament on Wednesday. Won't be able to join us at his usual time. So tomorrow at 4:05, we'll get PJ's takes, and this is PJ's wheelhouse. He knows his college basketball. We'll talk to him about his bracket. We'll talk to him about some upsets that he might like and some lines that he might like in that first round here Thursday and also on Friday. And because tomorrow we'll have play-in games as well, we can ask PJ his thoughts on the playing games. But more importantly than anything, it's the fourth region of the Baltimore accent bracket.
So this is at large, correct? You can go hockey, soccer. Are you opening up the Hollywood? Where's the line here?
I don't think there is a line. In fact, I'm willing to say that you could probably find. I could probably find a hockey player or two. I could probably. I'm just going to find like some wild cards, including, I'll spoil it, our very own Joe Capagreco will be in the region. Has to be. He won't understand it, but that's what makes it fun. He'll hear the name and he'll be like, "Ooh, that's a good one." How do I say no to Joe Capagreco?
We can't put Joe Capagreco.
What if Capagreco makes it into the Final Four? I mean, we've got our baseball, we've got our football, we've got our basketball. We've got baseball. It's Placido Polanco. Joe Flacco came out of the NFL region. Dante DiVincenzo came out of the basketball region last week. So, yeah, we'll see who comes out of the at-large region.
We're looking for great names. If you have a suggestion, can I nominate Cristiano Ronaldo?
Oh, for sure. Yes, I'm writing that one down. What's the criteria? Well, the criteria is you have to try and say it with the Baltimore accent, and if it sounds ridiculous, then it's in. Cristiano Ronaldo.
If you have the double vowel at the end of each name, that really hits too. Like, you can't get much better than Placido Polanco. I mean, that's perfect. So if there's a double vowel.
Yeah. Placido Polanco. That's a strong entrant. Whew. Yeah, if you have any, we'd love to hear them. At the Fan Rochester on X, we're going to tee up TJ with our at-large region, which will include some all-timers. And we'll see who emerges victorious in our fourth region for Baltimore accent madness. That's tomorrow, right around 4 o'clock. And then also tomorrow, Matt Perino in his normal Tuesday afternoon spot. We'll talk about Dane Jackson getting his extension. Learn a little bit more about Blackman and the visit he took with the Buffalo Bills, and also
Taron Johnson.
Taron Johnson. What
you said? Dane Jackson.
Taron Johnson. Yep.
Yeah. Dane Jackson, not good. Gets paid more money.
Taron Johnson is who I meant to say. Thank you, Gino. Also, Seth Appert joining us tomorrow afternoon, 4:25, and we'll talk about the Amerks preview Wednesday's game, Hartford.
Yeah.
The Wolfpack.
By the way, I love the fact that Don Stevens is hanging around. Moss Brooks is really good on the call. I got to catch the Saturday game, and again, Amerks kind of that scheduling sucks. You play Friday night, and then you're going to have how much are you going to have left in the tank? You got to play 1:30 the next day, 3 hours away.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk some Amerks. We'll talk some Sabres. We'll get to everything that we kind of fell through the cracks here. A round of shots coming up next, Gino.
Yeah. So right, a lot happening here. As we will talk a little about what. Wait a second, Syracuse, they opted out. We'll tell you what we know about that. We'll set you up for the women's bracket. A lot of hockey, including RIT in action there. And look, if I've got the chance to play Kevin Harlan audio, we're going to do it for you.
Oh, God. The guy is, he just brings it. I mean, there isn't a broadcaster who can improvise on the spot during chaotic moments better than Kevin Harlan.
Right. He's the guy. Like, if you something that is completely off script, that's the guy you want on the call.
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's some good audio coming up here next. A round of shots on the fan. And last call coming up, too. Get in now at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with update.
Some news on a Monday for the Buffalo Bills as Taron Johnson, the nickel corner, gets an extension, 3 years, $31 million. Steve Tasker on One Bills Live has more.
Poyer's now at Miami Dolphin, and Micah Hyde is probably not going to be back. Don't know yet, but looks like that way. Taron's like the last guy standing.
He's the veteran of the secondary
guy all of a sudden. So Taron's the guy. Get a guy who's been here in the building for a long time, get him signed up, and help him, let him stabilize that room back there that's seen a little bit of turnover this year.
Former Buffalo Bill Tre'Davious White has visits lined up with the Rams and the Raiders. Jordan Schultz reporting that free agent safety Julian Blackmon visiting the Buffalo Bills. He had 4 interceptions starting with the Colts last year. The Saints have signed free agent defensive end Chase Young. Sabres after dark tonight. They're in Seattle. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
From the field to the court to the rink, the Sports Leader is there. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
All right, time for a round of shots in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Yeah, no one expected Syracuse to get in the NCAA tournament, right? But to wake up this morning and see the school declined an invite to the NIT, that, to me, Danger, is a little surprising. The school putting out a statement, quote, "We respect the NIT, but our only postseason goal was to play in the NCAA tournament. Therefore, we communicated to the ACC we would not participate in the NIT." Now, I think 4 years ago, we here in Rochester were on track to host an NIT game for Syracuse with the dome under construction.
Was that the one and only time that we spoke to Jim Boeheim? What was the reasoning for us to talk to Jim Boeheim?
Because I gave him a reason. Because they were retiring the number of the greatest player in Syracuse history from Rochester, John Wallace. And that took a little arm twisting. Like, hey, you want to talk to the
But we did talk to him about
John
playing
Wallace.
games here in Rochester, right? We did bring that up to him.
It was evident that the Orange, kind of like this year, like, hey, if it doesn't go this way, and then he told us, like, yeah, we've been talking about that. We're like, whoa, okay. And then, well, you remember what happened in March of 2020. We never got there.
I still have Boeheim's number saved somewhere on my phone. I should just shoot him a text sometime, see what's up, see if he wants to go golfing this spring. Me, you, Wild Hack, Boeheim. Who says no?
Yeah.
You say no,
I
Gino.
say no.
You say no.
I'm terrible. Wild Hack would say no, too. Who will join us Wednesday, by the way.
Awesome.
The AD of Syracuse. Other schools that declined bids, Oklahoma, Pittsburgh, and St. John's. NIT, not sure about the future of that. The brackets are out, as you know. UConn, the top overall seed. The other number ones, Houston, Purdue, North Carolina. Many were surprised that Virginia got in. But there were only 8 teams that go to Dayton prior to the tournament Thursday night. NC State gets an 11th seed. The only way they could get in was win the ACC tournament, which they did, winning 5 games in 5 days. As some have pointed out, NC State has 5 wins in that D.C. arena. The Washington Wizards of the NBA have only 4.
Oh, God. You bringing that up just so you can just rub the Wizards' nose in it. Like, that's how bad you guys are. You can't even win 5 home games this year. That's just so... That stat is just so insulting to the Wizards. They deserve it. That's embarrassing.
Has there been like a more meaningless franchise in sports than the Washington Wizards? Like, they've never done anything. They had...
Embarrassing!
I spent some time last night watching the Clippers. I know that they're getting new uniforms and a new arena and everything, but they've kind of amounted to nothing. And boy, they were uninspired last night against a far inferior Atlanta Hawks team.
Wait a minute, you mean just like bringing in old guys and spending money that doesn't work?
They were just lackadaisical. They were sleepwalking through that game. Yuck.
Now, in the women's bracket, if you're hoping for a rematch in the final between Iowa and LSU, guess what? That's not happening. The committee putting them in the same bracket. Iowa is a 1, LSU is a 3. The 2 seed is UCLA. They're good, too. Some are saying that Caitlin Clark's team didn't get a good draw. Meanwhile, Syracuse women get a 6 seed. They'll get the winner of the playing game between Auburn and Arizona. SU tipping off at 3:30 on Saturday.
Okay.
Over the weekend, the RIT men's hockey team put their foot to the accelerator Rochester, scoring a combined 9 goals.
9 times.
Their 2-game sweep in Niagara. Now the Tigers get to host a 1-game winner-take-all contest with American International this Saturday night. Meanwhile, the Amerks split with Toronto. Rochester clinging to that third spot in the North Division, 1 point ahead of the Marlies and Belleville. Hartford coming to town Wednesday night. We'll talk to Amerks head coach Seth Appert, 4:25 tomorrow.
Yeah, you're right. That's a tough turnaround, man. You play Friday night, an emotional game. You got a charged crowd because it's Irish night, and then you have to turn around and drop the puck the next day at 1:30.
Sunday, see what the promo is? Bills Day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one where instead of they will play the shout song after a goal.
Moss Brooks came into the studio on Friday, and he came bearing gifts, so immediately he's my new favorite person within the organization. Got the red Veterans Day.
I think it was Warren that was
military day. Yes, Warren, of course. We love Warren, and it was Warren who came bearing the gifts. But, when we have the military appreciation hoodie, those red jerseys that they wore this year were so sharp, and the hoodie replicates it. I'm into it, and I'm curious to see what the Bills Day jerseys look like this year.
Well, it's weird. If you see the Bills Day logo, it's against an Amerks logo, but they couldn't use the actual Bills logo. Probably the NFL didn't give it. So it looks like a moose.
Oh.
It's weird.
Okay. As you mentioned, we will talk to Rochester Americans head coach tomorrow afternoon. Seth Appert joins us at his usual time, Tuesday afternoons at 4:25. We check in with Seth and get a state of the Rochester Americans. The third place in the North Division, Rochester Americans clinging onto that third place spot with both Toronto and Belleville nipping at their heels.
Yeah. Sabres, they play out in Seattle tonight. Seattle 5-0 all-time against Buffalo. According to NHL Stats and Info Danger, no NHL team has erased a 9-point standings deficit.
You know what?
9 times.
If this isn't the sports bar kiss of death, and made the playoffs through 64 games, losing to Detroit on Saturday meant, it's not 100% right now. Money Puck has the Sabres as a 6.7% chance that they'll make the postseason.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
There's still a chance, Gino.
Yeah!
Another movie I've never seen. Does Carrie get with the girl in the end on this or no?
Banging my head against the table. We you know what we need to do? We need to do a sports bar outing where a series where we just watch these classic movies that I have not watched or you have not watched, just to further educate ourselves and invite people who have also not seen Shawshank Redemption or Dumb and Dumber or, in my case, Hoosiers. I say that very quietly this time of year because I know basketball purists is like, how could you? No, not really into it. Field of Dreams, pass.
Okay. See, maybe we do something with like the Eastman House where we get up and I will give a little dissertation on Hoosiers beforehand, and everybody else can look at Danger and be like, "You never seen this?"
Well, no, the people that would be there have already. It would not. Nobody's going to come to see it if they've already seen it. It needs to be more people like me who haven't seen it. And you can't say everybody's seen it. That's not true. Just like you could say, I could say everybody's seen Shawshank. How can you not see Shawshank? It's literally on all the time. But I know that there are more people like you, Gino, that have never seen Shawshank Redemption, or in this case, Dumb and Dumber.
How could you have never seen Field of Dreams?
I've seen clips, bits and pieces. I can't watch the whole thing.
Yeah, come on, Dad, have a catch.
It's too much. I mean, I don't have daddy issues. I don't understand what, it didn't do it for me. The little bits and pieces that I saw, I'm like, this is kind of boring. I'm sorry. I like baseball movies. Like, I like The Natural. I thought that was cool. Like Long Gone, Major League, please. I mean, it's one of our favorites here in the sports bar. Field of Dreams just didn't do it for me.
No, it's a mystery the whole time. And you figure it out at the end.
Yeah. Well, that's a free idea. We can do a series of movies that we haven't seen. We'll wrap with Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels. Just absolute blue humor throughout.
Finally, it's the A10 tournament final between VCU and Duquesne. And if there is someone you would want on the call for the unexpected, it's Kevin Harlan.
Airstone gives off to Jackson. My goodness. Oh, my gosh. They got confetti falling right now. Confetti is falling on the floor. They're going to have to stop playing. We can't see our notes. The players can't work on this court. Confetti is everywhere. Somebody hit the wrong button.
He's the best.
Wasn't that bad. It was certainly noticeable, but they got it cleaned up. The
it was a complete mess.
Confetti release did not phase Duquesne going to the tournament for the first time in 47 years.
I can't forget about this one.
5:03 to go. Someone has run on the field. Some guy with a bra. And now he's not being chased. He's running down the middle of the 40. Arms in the air in a victory salute. He's pulling down his pants. Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants. He's being chased to the 30. He breaks a tackle from a security guard. The 20, down the middle, the 10, the 5. He slides at the 1, and they converge on him at the goal line. Pull up your pants, take off the bra, and be a man. And the players with hands on hips at the other end of the field are looking at him and shaking their head and saying, why, oh why, is this taking place in a Super Bowl?
You don't want anybody but Harlan calling when something chaotic happens that isn't supposed to happen. The guy knows how to play off of a script. I mean, he's so dialed into what's going on, he can't shut it off. He's doing play-by-play of a streaker. And it sounds just like his play-by-play of the game.
All right, I'm going to try. I don't know if you heard of this or not. Coming up April 8th, there's going to be this eclipse thing. And it's going to happen right while we're on the air, Danger.
Are you going to do play-by-play of it?
Yeah, we have totality. We have totality as the. I don't know.
Do you think Pizza Dude will let us up on the roof and we can watch the eclipse from up on the roof or broadcast from the roof of our building here? I think we would have a good view.
How can we? Well, can we pull that off?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of Ethernet.
A little roof party up there. We'll get a cooler, a couple of chairs.
See, I'm thinking
get our special glasses.
I'm thinking we just sit out front. If you've been by our studios, High Falls, set up a card table, and just you and I out there. And anybody else that wants to stop by, like, hey, we're here in High Falls. Like, it's not many people down in High Falls, but we're here.
Yeah, I don't think our spot will be like the prime location. I mean, I think the parking garage across the street would be great, except they're not going to let you up on the top of the parking garage.
Right.
So you won't be able to see it, but maybe we can get Pizza Dude to let us up on the roof. I'm sure we'd have to sign like a waiver or something. But yeah, we should go up there. That would be the place to watch. I'll get the little the foil thing that you put around your neck when you're just laying in your chair, and I'll put the silly glasses on, look up at the sky, and you can do play-by-play. We can all go, as it's happening.
Nobody's doing anything that day, right? Like, by that point, because schools are out, work is out. Hot eclipse talk here in the sports.
Yeah, well, I'll be fresh from vacation, so I'll be ready and down for whatever we decide we want to do. I'm excited for it. Last call is next at 866-4326. If you want to pull up a stool, we'll get you previewed for tomorrow afternoon as well. 866-4FAN.
You're listening to the Sports. Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Last call on the Sports Bar, 866-4FAN. 585-866-4326.
It's funny. We were talking about the Bills secondary. We can talk about the tournament. It's more PJ Glasser's appearance tomorrow, who we should put in the bracket.
The at-large region. Who's it going to be?
Doug called in from... He's going to be over there, by the way. We're going to meet him.
Chilai. We're going to be there at the tap room Thursday for the tournament.
He is submitting because this guy is a West Sider, and he's up for the Hall of Fame. Lou Grammatico.
Yes, you know him more. I think more people recognize him by his stage name, Lou Graham. Is that who we're talking
that's
about?
What we're talking about.
Not bad. Not bad. We'll have to consider that for the at-large region for Baltimore Accent Madness as PJ joins us tomorrow afternoon, a little after 4 o'clock. Busy day in the Sports Bar tomorrow, man.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Chris, South Central Kentucky, writing in, what about, if we're going to go Hollywood, Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. That's a pretty good one. It's a pretty good. Cristiano Ronaldo is a good one. Like that one.
That's your 1 seed.
It might be a 1 seed. DiCaprio's not bad.
You can't put Joe Capagreco in there.
I can and I will.
BJ's gonna be like, who?
I don't care. We can explain it to him.
Maybe the commercial, the promo will come up right before we have him on there.
We can explain it to him. He's a Rochester radio legend. Rochester legend. Joe Capagreco. What do you need to know? What more do you need to know?
Isn't it kind of weird that you and I have been here well over a decade and we've never met him?
Does he exist?
Is he a hologram?
What do I believe more? That Joe Capagreco is a real person or Wilt Chamberlain actually scored 100?
So that was Peter's DJ. Nobody saw it.
Yeah.
There's no footage. It's just him holding up a sign.
One of our regulars, Pete, in homage to the conspiracy theory that I throw out there that Wilt never went for 100. Named his bracket Wilt 100-point conspiracy theories. Maybe it is just a hologram every Sunday morning here, playing all of the finest Italian contemporary hits and sharing the latest soccer scores. Latest Italian soccer scores from Italy. Yeah. Joe Capagreco. Cristiano Ronaldo. Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, these are going to fly. These are going to be good.
That was good suggestions, everyone.
Those are great. Appreciate that. At the Fan Rochester on X. Matt Perino stops by tomorrow afternoon, 3:25. Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard covering the Buffalo Bills. We saw an extension today for, I'm not going to say Dane Jackson.
Taron Johnson.
Taron Johnson got the extension. We got a visit today, a safety visiting the Buffalo Bills in Blackman from Indianapolis. We'll see if anything develops from that here over the course of the next 24 hours. And then we'll also talk to Rochester Americans head coach Seth Appert. He stops by the Sports Bar at his usual time, Tuesday afternoons, 4:25. We'll recap the home and home against Toronto, and we'll look ahead to Wednesday's matchup with Hartford, the Wolf Pack, coming to town. Coming to town?
They are in town.
Coming to town.
Yeah, only visit for the Wolf Pack.
Yeah. And then Toronto again on Friday night. So a busy week for the Rochester Americans as they look to cling to that third place position they have in the North standings right now. Coming up next on the Fan Rochester, JR Sport Brief. We'll get to some Bet MGM tonight with Ryan Horvat, who joined us earlier today. And if you missed that conversation, or Donna DeToda from the Syracuse Post-Standard, both conversations available wherever you get your podcasts. Just search out the Sports Bar and you'll find all of our guest appearances and shows. And also tonight, 10 o'clock, Sabres After Dark, as Buffalo is in Seattle to take on the Kraken and look to get their first win against that franchise.
Feels like a loss.
Feels like a win.
Oh.
Feels like a win, Gino. Got to get off the schneid at some point. feels like a win. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about it all here on The Fan Rochester. Have a great night.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.